Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of the Tetracast. This is RPG Site's weekly podcast where we get the site staff together to talk about our favorite genre of video games. I'm your host, Brian Vitale. I've got the full crew here today, which is a good thing, which we'll talk about later. We've got Josh Torres.
This single past week has been like one of the most exciting times in like video game announcements that I've like ever witnessed, like in the last like 5-6 years.
We've got Adam Vitale.
Hello.
We have James Galizio.
Hey, folks.
And we have Chow Min Woo.
How's it going?
Yeah, so a lot of stuff happened in the last week. I'm looking at our outline here, which we have kind of tweaked and prodded and edited, and I think this is easily the highest number of headlines we've had this year. It might be the largest number of headlines we've had ever in the 2.5 years or whatever since reviving this podcast. It has been an insane week, and some of it we were expecting. We've been talking the last couple of weeks about here comes TGS. We're expecting a lot, but then all of a sudden we had a Nintendo Direct and a Sony State of Play on top of that, and then we had like RGG Studios jump in and like blow stuff out of the water, like completely defy our expectations for what they had to show. We had other stuff sneak in that didn't fall into any given category. We even had some late PAX West previews coming in. It's a lot. So this podcast is going to be news heavy, not quite news exclusive, but we're not going to have a specific section at the front where we're going to be talking about games we've been playing. Instead, we're going to be trying to go mostly chronologically throughout the week as things were announced, but even that's not quite right because something will show up at the Nintendo Direct, which is on Tuesday, and then the publisher will follow up with their own presentation a day later, and then it'll show up in TGS a day later. So we're going to try to have every announcement kind of bundled together to the best extent that we can. We have had some chances to preview or demo some of the announcements alongside their, whatever relevant news. So we'll talk on those in tangents as we get to those. So we're going to try to put this in as best of an order as we can. And we're just going to, get cozy, everyone, whether you're participating in the podcast now or listening to it later with your snack or beverage of choice. This might be a while. We have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, so, just keep in mind, some of the people here on the podcast, including me, our sleeping schedules are fucking destroyed at this point. It's just, we don't have a sleeping schedule for some of us because of how TGS and Japan time zones, complement where we are.
And on top of that, there's been so many headlines that I know James, Josh, Adam, Kite, and others have all contributed to covering these. So certain ones of these, certain people will be more versed on because they were present when it was announced or covered the news story than others because we haven't had a chance to watch all 36 trailers each before this podcast. So we'll be doing a lot of bouncing around. We're doing a lot of making sure that all the details get elucidated as we can. So let's just stop dilly-dallying and go right into it. So there are some major headlines that obviously we're going to stop and pause on. For instance, the Fire Emblem Engage, the Breath of the Wild sequel has a title, but we're going to go mostly in chronological order. So we will try to keep all the timestamps as clear as possible. So if you want to jump ahead to something that interests you the most, we will try to have it organized by what event it was or what publisher or even an individual news story. The timestamps at the time of recording aren't written yet. So we don't know exactly what they'll be, but they will be as good as possible as we can because this one will be a long one. So to start out, we're going to start with something that'll be a little bit abbreviated here, just simply due to the fact that we have so much to talk about. Obviously, TGS was this week. Nintendo Direct was this week. State of Play was this week. But in the previous weeks, we did have one of our contributors go over to PAX West in Seattle in late August, and that was Scott White, and he was able to look at a few games for us and write up some previews for those. Unfortunately, we can't spend a lot of time covering these games because Scott is not on this podcast here, but I figured we could at least give due diligence to his previews up on the site so that you can go ahead and read them if you'd like. The first game that he looked at was indie FFT-like called Arcadian Atlas. He basically said that we've talked about how not all strategy games are built in the vein of Final Fantasy Tactics. Well, this one clearly is. So this is the first preview that Scott has up on the site from his time at PAX West. So go ahead and give that a read if you're looking at things like Dio Field. It's not quite what you want. You want something more like the classic Final Fantasy Tactics well, go ahead and look at Arcadian Atlas and Scott's preview on the site. Here's one that I think we might have covered back when we got a trailer for it out of PAX, and that is the System Shock remake. And we talked about how we got some new footage of it, but still nothing from a release window. So we weren't able to talk a lot about that trailer specifically, but Scott was able to go see it at PAX West and write a little bit more personal preview on the game. I'm not 100% sure if he was actually able to go hands-on or not, but he was able to talk to the developers there at their presence at PAX. So go ahead and look up the System Shock remake preview up on the site as well. And the last thing from PAX West that Scott was able to look at was for a game that I have mentioned interest in before on this podcast, and that is Lost Eidolons. Lost Eidolons is kind of this Fire Emblem-like, built with a more Witcher kind of style art direction that is coming out in October. And he was able to get a hands-on opportunity for Lost Eidolons over at PAX West as well. So Arcadian Atlas, System Shock Remake, and Lost Eidolons, 3 games that I wanted to make sure we at least shout out here at the start here. Scott was able to write up some good previews for those. So go ahead and search for them on the site if those 3 titles do interest you. Moving on into the headlines of the week. Obviously, we had the Nintendo Direct and the State of Play on Tuesday, and we had a few headlines kind of leak in just before that. So we'll go ahead and since we're going to go kind of chronologically here, we'll talk about them. One of which we did have, I actually don't have this on the outline, but we did have a Ubisoft directed streaming event early in the week, which didn't have a lot for RPG fans. They did talk a lot about Assassin's Creed and their new basically paradigm for that series. The only thing really of interest here is that they did mention that a new Assassin's Creed title, currently just known as Codename RED, set in Japan, is in development. We only got a very tiny teaser for it, and it will follow the RPG stylings of the recent games like Origin, Odyssey, and Valhalla. So I don't know if there's a lot of people here interested in the Assassin's Creed RPG likes. It sounds like more people were interested in more of the classic style Assassin's Creed. Adam, you've put like 200 hours into Valhalla. I don't know if you're, by the time Codename RED comes out, if you'll be itching for more or if you've had your fill.
And apparently Valhalla's not done yet. They also announced like a final chapter, or like a final free update. It's like finally concludes it. And I've already uninstalled the game, so it's like, I'm sorry, I'm probably done. But yeah, so next year's Assassin's Creed is Mirage, which is like going back to the action adventure style. But then they also announced Codename RED. It was literally like a 30-second teaser trailer. It's like, we're set in Japan, it's an RPG. It's being developed by the Odyssey team mostly. So if you liked Odyssey, it has the same, pedigree as that. And then they also announced like Assassin's Creed Hex, Codename Hex, which we don't really know a whole lot about it other than they said it's going to be different and that it has like something to do with like the Salem witch trials or that sort of vibe or genre to it. So who knows?
Yeah. So as far as we're relevant right now as an RPG site though, like even the very next Assassin's Creed, like Mirage, they're going back to the roots of Assassin's Creed, which obviously wasn't an RPG. It was like more in the vein of Assassin's Creed 1 and Assassin's Creed 2, which are more action adventure games that don't really have much RPG progression systems or like itemization as like Origins and Odyssey. So yeah, I mean, Code Red is weird because it's kind of at a weird time where like we already have like kind of like a good fill of like Japan themed like open, not exactly all open world, but like very open RPGs. Like, and some we'll talk about in this podcast too, because a good chunk of those just got announced as well. So it's starting to feel like that aspect is starting to get saturated. It's such like a specific genre, but it's already starting to feel like there's more than we bargained for. It's like I like that. Like there was a certain time where these types of games were like kind of novel, like around like when Ghost of Tsushima came out. But now it's just like now more and more people are like, okay, we wanna now that we know that like that these kinds of games can sell. Now people are just like kind of lining up to do that.
Yeah, we've got at least 2 other titles, and there might be some I'm forgetting, that we'll be talking about on this podcast, in addition to the additional titles that we talked about last week that were set in medieval China as well. So it just seems like a lot of people that are interested in that style of history from those parts of the world have a lot to look forward to. We have announcements even that are like TBA 2024. So a lot of this stuff is being announced early, and we'll have basically a long time to look forward to them as they start getting doled out. And a few playable demos of certain games like that as well. That have been made available this week. Another one of the announcements that took place right before the Tuesday deluge of news was a game that we've talked about on the podcast back in February. We had a Nintendo Direct back in February, if you don't remember. And as part of that Nintendo Direct, on the Japanese side only, Xseed and Marvelous, well, I guess not Marvelous in this case, but we learned about a game called Loop8 Summer of Gods. And that obviously at the time only showed up in a Japanese Nintendo Direct. It's a new IP that is set in a rural town that has a lot of Persona kind of influences in the setting and its relationship system and combating demons and things like that. We talked about it a little bit back in February, but this week we did learn that Xseed and Marvelous Games will be localizing this title for next year, and we got a new trailer that showcases both English voices. We learned that the release will support dual audio. We got a new trailer for it. So this game I don't remember a lot about back in February, but if you had this on your radar back when it was announced and we're wondering whether we'd see a Western localization for it, it has been confirmed. No other real details other than that, but just knowing that Marvelous will be bringing it over next year.
Yeah, this is an interesting title because I'm a sucker for time travel stories. So time travel RPG kind of speaks to me, especially when they're kind of phrasing this as a quote unquote coming of age adventure. The basic premise of this is the protagonist's name is Nini, and then the premise where this takes place is like at this like kind of like small town in Japan, like of Ashihara around the year 1983. So it's like early 80s Japan, which is a pretty novel like setting in video games in general.
Yeah.
And then so there's a very like spiritual aspect to it. So apparently like Nini, the protagonist, has like this connection with the gods and can use demon sight, so that allows them to loop and reset the world, because the main objective of the player is like to drive back these demons from it, and like you kind of have to like use these loops to combat like the Kegai demonic demons. So we don't really know exactly like how the mechanics will work in this game. We've seen some gameplay footage, as you mentioned, and we do see that like the battles seem like they're turn based. I'm not 100% sure if that's how they play out, but that's like what the interface looks like. But we'll see how it goes when they bring it over next year. That looks like might be a neat title.
It reminds me funny that
Go ahead, James.
Even before this was officially announced, like everyone knew it was being localized. You don't release a JRPG on Xbox One in Japan without intending to localize it.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of always the weird indicator. It's like, okay, if they're announcing this in Japan for Xbox One, then eventually we're gonna see it here for sure. Unless it's like, I don't know exactly how Xbox. I know Xbox Series has been doing like fairly decently in Japan now, but Xbox One obviously just doesn't sell anymore because of Xbox Series.
And this next headline probably would have been a highlight if every other part of the week wasn't so surprisingly packed. But this kind of came out of nowhere. And this is hot off the heels. We're going to be talking about Electronic Arts here, which is a publisher we don't often talk about because they're not usually in our realm. And other than the fact that there were the rumors that they're going to be bought by Amazon or whatever that fell through. But we got news that Electronic Arts will be partnering with Koei Tecmo's Omega Force studio to develop a AAA hunting game set in feudal Japan. There we are again. And Omega Force being the developer, I hope I get this right, behind the Toukiden. I hope I don't know which way that's pronounced. The Toukiden series. Back on the PSP. Or was the second one on Vita? I don't quite remember. I played the initial one. I don't remember if it was PSP or Vita.
It was so Toukiden 1 and Kiwami were available on PSP in Japan, but they were never available on PSP in the West.
Gotcha. So we don't know if this is in that series, but we do know that it's Omega Force developing a hunting game set kind of in the same time period, published by Electronic Arts.
Yeah, walks like a duck. I mean, it's obviously maybe it'll be a little bit different once we see like footage, but from everything you're saying, it's basically sounding like Toukiden 3 in all but name, but with a larger budget. Which I mean, I don't know if anyone else here played Toukiden 2, but it was actually really cool. And I feel like the main thing that was holding it back was lack of development time and budget, which sounds like that'll be fixed with EA money. So I'm excited to see what.
Yeah, it's really bizarre to see like a press release for Electronic Arts, and it mentions Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors in it.
Yeah. So this was announced by press release, no trailer or anything, no logo as far as I know, just a one piece of concept art. I think that's all we got.
I think so.
And then the press release doesn't mention, unless I'm missing it, Tokaiden. It mentions Dynasty Warriors and Samurai Warriors, but that doesn't seem to be the type of game this is. So just kind of interesting that we got basically 4 paragraphs from EA talking about how they're planning to do this, and that's kind of all we've got to go on. Not a lot of games are announced that way these days.
It's kind of bizarre, right? Because Omega Force has it just feels like they've been kind of the development studio has been like kind of just working their way up like behind the scenes ever since their partnership with Nintendo, with the Hyrule Warriors, with Atlas, with Persona Strikers, and now they're starting to move into even to Western IPs now, working with EA.
Didn't Omega Force develop Dragon Quest Builders 1 and 2?
I don't know exactly if they were.
It was a Koei Tecmo studio. I'm trying to
I'm not exactly sure if they were the ones behind it, or if they might have been like a co-development assisting. I'm not 100% sure on that, but yeah, Omega Force, it's crazy. I'm excited. It's just it's kind of weird seeing like this development studio that I've been like with for many years, like ever since like Dynasty Warriors 2 and 3. It's just like wow, they're really making progress.
According to Moby Games, it was indeed Omega Force that was behind Dragon Quest Builders 1.
Cool. Yeah. Then we'll see what they got. Okay, like what do you foresee this being? Like in my mind, in my fucked up mind, like this is like I don't know why my mind goes to like Mass Effect, but like some sort of like Mass Effect Japan themed hunting game. I don't know how that makes sense, but that's what I think.
Mass Effect is EA technically, so
yeah.
Well, I mean, a lot of the language in this press release is very like mealy mouthed, just like help us introduce a new kind of hunting game to a global audience. Like, well, what else do they've got here?
Be a new thing for a hunting game.
I'll be honest here. I'm surprised it's taken a Western studio this long, like one of the big Western publishers this long to announce something that's very clearly trying to go for that Monster Hunter money. Because, like, I mean, when World's sold over 20 million copies, let's not kid ourselves here. EA's not the only company looking at that and thinking we should do something like this. I just think that EA's probably been the smartest about this, because instead of trying to develop it themselves, they went to a company that already has a proven track record with this genre and said, here, take a bunch of money, make something with it. I'm excited to see what comes out of this.
What was man? I'm blanking on the name, but what was the name of that indie Monster Hunter
Dauntless.
before? Yeah, Dauntless.
I think I still get like PR emails about that every now and then.
Yeah, I get like I think about that when I think of like games that we're really trying for Monster Hunter before like Monster Hunter blew up, and that was like one of the leading ones before World came out.
Yeah, and they say we're going to be expecting more information this month, so not a whole lot of weeks left in the month. We're halfway through, but we might see something in the coming weeks about. We obviously have it seems like it's very early, no release window, no platforms or anything, but obviously no title or anything other than a single piece of concept art. So who knows what we'll see from this, but it's pretty exciting. And I think, like James said, it's kind of obvious to see that the success Monster Hunter has had in the past 4 or 5 years. And the Monster Hunter kind of had its time in the sun about a decade ago, but has kind of been a little bit quiet since. I had almost forgot about Dauntless existing. So it'll be interesting to see a Western publisher kind of take a stab at it and partnering with someone, like James said, has a track record of doing pretty well with it. All right, here's something that I didn't originally have in the podcast document, but Josh was insistent that we talk about this. And I'm totally on board with that. All righty, so the major release from earlier this year from publisher Square Enix and developer Platinum Games, Babylon's Fall, will shut down in February of next year. So I don't think we ever reviewed this. I know that Josh previewed it without a lot of good things to say about it. We've had a few friends of the site continue to try to stay up to date on it to the extent that they can. We've kind of taken the piss out of some tweets from the official Babylon's Fall Twitter saying that they're still going to support the game, that it's not on life alert.
I still have that image that is the continuing service in danger image on my computer. I have it up in front of me right now. Man, this game it's weird, right? Because this is like this was supposed to be a games as a service game, and it's weird that it's not gonna make its first anniversary. It's gonna stop right at least at the 3rd of March this year. And it's stopping at like Funny enough, at a leap year where like they're making use of the extra day in that year to shut it down. But yeah, I mean everything. I mean, the enduring thing for the public for this game is like no one fucking played this game as far as like the Steam charts site goes. Who knows how the metrics are for the other consoles? I can't imagine it's that much better either.
Remember that headline about how there was like one single person playing Babylon's Fall on PC?
If anything, that's the best thing that this game kind of gave us outside of like in terms of like news. It's just like it's a lot. It's amusing because you don't get to see that anymore. Like you see like other like games as a service that like you don't really hear about, and like they get like updates that don't really move the needle forward. Like PSO2 New Genesis comes to mind, where like whether it's like a good thing or a bad thing, whether it gets new content or not, that game like averages around 3,000 players come hell or high water for that. So it's but and this one is like it feels like universally people are just like we're not in the mood for Babylon's Fall. This isn't for me. And it's just like Square Enix and Platinum Games just misread the market so hard with this game. And it's a shame because I remember like a very early announcement of like Babylon's Fall before we knew it was like games as a service, and like the early footage, like okay, this might be okay, like a cool action game from Platinum Games, but man, this I don't have any empathy or sympathy for like the game shutting down. I mean, all the best for like the developers, and hopefully they get to move on to cooler projects from this, and hopefully there's like some real lessons learned from this. Like, hey, well, what are we doing here? And it's kind of interesting to see like how they tried to like kind of get interest back to the game with like a Near Automata collaboration and all these like stuff. But it's just like okay, well, it didn't work out. So this is kind of like the real reality of like if your games as a service isn't like prepared for like going the extra mile to like make sure that like it finds a player base, you're not going to survive that long no matter what you say. Even if you put out a Twitter image that asks if the continuing service is in danger and you firmly say no confidently.
I mean, first impressions are so hard to correct.
Yeah,
it's definitely one of those things where I feel like so many companies try to make games as a service, but the truth, like the reality is that the majority of games can't really find that audience.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. And if anything, I can only speak for myself, but I know a bunch of friends that for them, games as a service is just like a black mark. Like whenever they hear a game is like pushing for that, it just tells them two things. One, that the game's not really going to be in a good state at launch because like the track record for games as a service as a whole is that those games do not launch well. And two, it's like, especially for like Babylon's Fall, the reason anyone was excited for that was because they wanted a single player action game, maybe in an RPG from Platinum Games, because that's what people know them for. Nobody wanted a games as a service from Platinum because it's like completely like antithetical to their entire like
catalog
brand.
Yeah, it's just it's kind of a weird move from them. So like, I remember like when they announced it like at some like I think maybe E3 last year. It's like, oh yeah, this is a games as a service game. It's like, oh, I know the majority of people I saw were like, oh, well, all right, I guess
track record's good for the last couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, they like, I feel like Platinum Games hasn't really had a great track record in general, and they like it's like I know for some people, it's like Bayonetta 3 might be like the last straw for them on like giving Platinum a chance for the time being. So yeah,
let's have a breakdown from what they have been doing. They also made a shut up game that nobody has been played.
Yeah.
Yes. Then what is it? Did anyone play World of Demons on mobile?
I did.
Yes, I did.
Okay, was it any good?
It was all right. It was all right.
It's very much one of those weird like Apple Arcade things where like it was clearly a mobile game at first, and it was very evident because they had like that press tour for World of Demons at that one year, and then it disappeared off the face of the planet before being on Apple Arcade. But like the structure and the menus of World of Demons and the progression was very much like, yes, this started life as a mobile game. It's like it's one of those games that I would not come back and play daily for like dailies or whatever. It's like, okay, I'll play it for once in a while, but eventually I just got bored like after like a week or so. But like, yeah, I don't want to like stay on this topic for too long because we have a lot of other things. But it's just like one of those things. It's like, recently Platinum Games hasn't really been doing anything that like caught a lot of people's eyes. For me personally, the last thing I liked from them was Astral Chain, and that was several years ago.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's something wrong in the management. But well, we'll find out eventually, I guess.
So I was looking at the original because this was announced back in like 2018, 2019. Back when Platinum Games had, I think, better word of mouth because it was, less further removed from the Automata and things like that. And I'm just looking at some of the comments on our announcement articles, and it's like, so glad Platinum and Square are partnering up again since it's been their most successful team up to date. And then in the next one, it's like, oh, this is a live service game now. That's a shame. just seeing in real time people's hearts being crushed.
Yeah.
But anyways, we do as alongside the service shutdown announcement, we do have the schedule for like. They already don't sell their premium currency anymore, but the schedule of events leading down to next February next year about exactly when things are, turning off or having one last hurrah for the few people that still play this game. With that, we go into the Nintendo Direct, which was early morning for most of us in the States on Tuesday. And Nintendo Directs, just in the last 3 or 4 years, have always been, really headline heavy for our site. They've just got a lot of stuff that crosses our purview in a lot of ways. And without dilly-dallying anymore, the big one here, and this is something that has been rumored for a long while and even leaked in several ways, is that we got the announcement of the next mainline Fire Emblem game, another anniversary title similar as in Awakening. We've got Fire Emblem Engage is launching in January of next year on the 20th for Nintendo Switch. We got a lot of new artwork. We got obviously an announcement trailer for this. We got a lot of feedback on social media and all those various spheres about what they thought about the character designs and the announcement trailer.
Yeah, I am pro toothpaste hair.
Yeah, we've got Pepsi Man and Colgate Chan. But
I'll tell you a real cursed secret. It's the child of Arvis and Sigurd.
When this was leaked, because it's like there was like leaked shots of this coming a few months back. Like the thing that caught people's eyes is like the main character design, because they have like the red and blue hair all mixed like in like gradient style and everything. It just looks like a hot mess. But yeah, it's a hot mess that I'm here for, right?
Like that looks so stupid. It can't possibly be real. That's how people were.
Yeah, exactly. Like people are like this. That's the main thing for the leak shots. Like this cannot be real because that main character design looks so stupid. And like going into this, I was like, I wonder if they're gonna keep that design. And then it's like, sure enough, when they first showed there, I'm like, yes, it's real.
Like even the leaker probably is trolling too. Did you see that leak screenshot? They named the toothpaste Chad www.
And it's anyways to not bury the lead too much. So the announcement trailer and the subsequent press release for the game, the protagonist is a voice protagonist this time, male or female, named Atelier, Alear. It seems like they have been awakened after a long slumber to try to combat the danger of the fell dragon. They partner with past heroes of the series. It looks like each mainline series from 1 through 3 Houses gets represented in a certain way. I've seen people compare this to like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure stands. It looks like different characters will equip like signet rings, which have like the entity of a past hero attached to them. Atelier is partnered with Marth. We also see somewhere I've got the whole list of the different heroes that are.
Yeah, we see Lynn throughout like because like when they're showing like the beginning of this trailer,
the big mural.
Like there's a mural, and like they're like the past heroes of Fire Emblem are actually part of the lore of this game, because in the past the Fell Dragon was like taken down by emblems, and these were like the characters from past Fire Emblem games.
Yeah, so in chronological order from release, we've got Marth, Celica, Sigurd, Leaf, Roy, Lynn, Erica, Ike, Micaiah, Lucina, Corrin, and Byleth. Obviously, I guess they had to pick Byleth for 3 Houses, so they didn't play favoritism amongst the other 3. So Byleth seems like a little bit of a boring pick. Where's who?
Where's Seliph?
Oh yeah, so we get Sigurd from Genealogy of the Holy War, and not Seliph. So
yeah,
obviously we don't know like for sure that those are the only ones, but they're the ones that are all represented on the mural at the start.
My friends are already trolling. They were like, "This looks like the lobby room of Fire Emblem heroes. Are they going to have core crystals from Xenoblade 2 to get those heroes?" Oh my god, no, please.
Yeah, I mean, like they showed off gameplay of this game. And it's very much like a visual upgrade enhancement of the Three Houses engine. Like you did.
Technically, it looks really good.
Yeah, it looks pretty good, especially when you compare it to like Three Houses. Like it's visually a step up. And then like it's similar to like the monastery, you'll have like a town area where you can like run around in and like engage with stuff in there. Going to shops, upgrading your character, probably interacting with the other characters in the game. They showed off a few of like the party members. Like one of them I know is like a female martial artist, I believe, and a cavalier. And yeah, it looks like if you liked how Fire Emblem was in Three Houses, it looks like Engage is gonna continue upon that. I think the biggest change from here is they won't have like the redo turns mechanic from Three Houses. We don't know exactly what they're gonna do yet for battles in terms of like those kinds of mechanics, but it looks really really good. Like I'm very interested to trying it out.
And the art direction looks really nice. Looks kind of different from Three Houses, but technically it looks better. I've seen a lot of people say that the characters look like VTubers, especially the main characters.
I love the photoshops that have come out of this game for that. Yeah, what was the main character designer's name for Engage? I know they shared it around, but like I know they're a character designer for like the Bales VTuber from Hololive. I know they did work for Seishonagun from Fate Grand Order. I'm blanking on the name right now, which is a shame. I need to go search it up.
The Wikipedia, let's see, Mika Picasso.
Yeah, Mika Picasso. Yeah, very, very talented artist.
So they've at least worked on the two protagonists. So and they're a character artist on the game, so I'm assuming they've had a hand in all the characters that we've seen so far. So the style is a little bit different. I've seen some people react a bit negatively to it. I kind of think I need to see more first. Like my favorite era of Fire Emblem artwork was, I forget the name of the artist, but the Tellius era artwork. So even Three Houses, I wasn't as much of a fan of.
Senri Kita, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. My favorite artist is was it Wada Sachiko? I don't think has Sachiko done newer Fire Emblem stuff.
Let me guess. That's Genealogy and Thracia.
No, that's Sealing Blade and the what's it? And
the GBA games.
Yes, the GBA games.
Yeah, those had really good artwork too. This artwork isn't bad. I think the technical prowess of the game helps it a lot because it just looks really clean and smooth, and the trailer doesn't have like a lot of slowdown or a lot of low resolution blockiness. At least compared to what I remember of Three Houses, which didn't run that great all the time. So I do think it looks really nice. I don't know, like in general, the fact that this is like an anniversary title, like it feels like to me, it's like we just got Awakening. Oh wait, that was a decade ago. Damn it.
Oh man,
I don't know. I kind of would like prefer a game that like didn't have to like say, hey, you remember Lynn, you remember Ike, you like Ike, right? Here, Ike's in this game. Like I don't need that, but I know a lot of people really like it. So it's like, all right, it's harmless to have a bit of fan service in that way.
Yeah,
and maybe it'll be incorporated in a way that's cool.
Yeah, we just got off like a mainline Fire Emblem game that wasn't an anniversary title. So I mean,
that's a good point.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll be implemented in a way that I'll be eating McCrow here, and it'll be done in a pretty engaging and compelling way. I've seen some people say like, Marth is such a boring pick for the protagonist, but it's also like easily the safest pick.
I think it sucks that like they showcased Marth as like the first one. Obviously, he has to be showcased as the first one, but like it's cool to see like new, updated, modern graphical models for like these past Fire Emblem characters. Like the only time we've really seen them is from Fire Emblem Heroes, and that's just mainly new artwork for them because that still has like the chibi art style that Fire Emblem Heroes uses. We don't have like many like instances of like new like just blown out new engine, new graphical engine, modern technology, what these characters would look like as a modern rendition of them, which is pretty exciting in its own right.
And there was the Divine Edition they talked about, and I know people have either like lined up or already lined up for the pre-orders of that. I forget exactly what comes with it, but I saw a lot of people immediately trying to figure out where they could get pre-orders in for that. But yeah, January of next year, so it's not a holiday title, but something we'll be playing early in the next calendar year. So it's kind of an interesting spot to release a Fire Emblem game. Well, I guess when did Three Houses release? February? Maybe it's not that strange.
I think February sounds right. Yeah, the Divine Edition. Three Houses, yeah. Didn't it come out earlier that year?
I thought in the year. I thought it came out in the summer.
Oh, well.
Yeah, it came out in the summer.
Okay, well, we're old.
Yeah, we're old and had poor memory.
July 2019.
Okay, that's close enough to early that
Yeah.
year. The Divine Edition for Fire Emblem Engage comes with game, steelbook, art cards, poster, and I think an art book.
But yeah, Chow is probably the biggest Fire Emblem fan here. How are you feeling about Engage?
I don't know how I feel about Two-Face Hand. I always feel like the concept art looks fine. It's just in execution with 3D didn't look really too good.
It's good. And, I like it because it's wacky in a fun, goofy way. I'll never get bored looking at the main character. Right? It's just like one of those things. I'll look at them and I'll think about it, then laugh. Not in a bad way, but it's just like because the design is so amusing to me.
You'll always recognize it. It'll stand out. But I don't know. I don't feel engaged as with this game because I don't know. I don't like any game that has Marth in it. That is quite a lot.
Marth, like in the official artwork for the game, Marth has
but I despise any
estate.
game that has Marth in it. I hated Shadow Dragon. I don't really like. Well, Free is decent, but it still had Marth in it.
You hate all Smash Brothers games.
Smash Brothers is not even a real fighting game.
Oh wow!
All right, there you go. The strongest anti-Marth. Man, all right.
Take Marth out of the game, and Engage will be on top of Chow's list. But yeah, we're not too far removed from this, so I do kind of like that Nintendo announces a game that's like 5 months out, really. So it won't be too long before we start playing this. And I'm guessing we'll have the marketing cycle for it ramp up pretty quickly with the other. We didn't get to see all the past heroes in game, so I'm guessing we'll get little glimpses of that as we get closer to release date. All right, there were a lot of headlines as part of the Nintendo Direct, and there's so many that we could easily pick to talk about at the front or right behind Fire Emblem. Even though it was a shorter trailer, and it's kind of what they ended on, I believe, we're going to be talking about the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild sequel finally has a name. It is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. So we got a new trailer for it. However, the trailer was actually quite short. It shows about 10 or 20 seconds of the mural type artwork about like the same sort of stuff they did at the History of the Calamity from the first game. We got little snippets of gameplay of the new look for Link, just kind of exploring the overworld and, dropping from one of the sky islands and landing on some sort of like flying aircraft bird thing. But that's really kind of it. We don't really see a lot other than that. It doesn't have like the same vibe as the initial trailer where we saw Link and Zelda going into like the underground crypt. We don't see Zelda at all in this trailer outside of, I guess, represented in the mural. We did get the box art and some new just artwork for the game, which is pretty neat. But we did learn that the release date for this game will be May 12th of next year. So a summer release for the next mainline Zelda game.
I mean, yeah, this is what they needed to do. After all, after getting delayed, unfortunately, by COVID and everything. I think this is definitely one of the major titles that was hit the hardest because of the pandemic. And just had to keep on delaying it back and back and back and back. So I don't really know if they're gonna stick with that May 12th date. I feel like it's gonna have at least one more delay. That's kind of my gut feeling. But it's nice to see that at least it's we're getting there, right? We're getting there. At the very least. I would have been more skeptical if this was early 2023 of when the release date. So maybe they can hit that May 12th release date. It's still somewhat far out. It's probably one of the furthest RPGs. Well, I mean, this is kind of I don't know if this counts as an RPG, but very RPG-esque.
Zelda is always not an RPG, but we cover it anyways because we can. Who's going to stop us?
Yeah. And to be fair, the Breath of the Wild styled games are the most RPG they've been in a long time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But yeah, there's the in terms of when you're talking about calendar and release dates, it's definitely one of the furthest games out for a known release date that we have.
Yeah, but I guess there's really not a whole lot. I've seen some of the Zelda specific YouTube channels really pick and prod at the trailer, and we're not quite the right place for that. If you want to digest every frame and what's in it, but it basically looks like that they're expanding the open world exploration. Obviously the initial game had a huge aspect on climbing, and here they kind of show Link climbing the floating rocks, levitating and decelerating into the air.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then instead of just the parasail or whatever it's called, the glider, you've got a larger version of that where he drops onto this stone falcon thing. So my guess is that aerial traversal will be obviously a big component of this game. Not a lot. I mean, maybe you can glean a little bit about the story premise from the initial, chatter over that mural, but
I mean, like the most memorable thing about like the this game was like that very first reveal with Zelda and Link in that weird like dark cavern. When they
Yeah,
first,
and
this game.
basically all but confirmed to be Ganondorf underneath. And
Yeah.
this basically they're holding that close to their chest here. And we did know that based on some of the earliest marketing for Tears of the Kingdom, that it's going to borrow some of the same overworld from the base game, but it sounds like they're really kind of going all out with the aerial traversal in the Sky Islands as well to try to give it a much wider expanded scope. I saw someone tweet earlier, like 5 years later, and I'm still upset that Breath of the Wild, even with its expansion DLC, didn't give you enough like shrines to max out both your health and stamina. And then I was like, oh God, 5 years ago? That was 5 years ago. Turn into a mummy. It was just immediately. We thought that this might show up pretty quick because if they reused assets, they might be able to turn it on quickly. But then COVID happened, and now it's been kind of the longest gap between Zelda games, I think, since like the 90s. Because we don't have...
I think by the time it comes out, it might just straight up be the longest gap between Zelda releases.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, just like Fire Emblem Engage, I'm sure we'll have marketing spin up for that as we get into the next calendar year. Breath of the Wild was great. This looks like it basically doesn't show. I know the one thing that people are going to be wondering about are dungeons and like weapon durability, but those are, I guess, something that is still kind of shrouded in mystery if those have been tweaked at all in any way. And in a lot of ways, we haven't seen a lot of. I'm trying to remember. We've seen Tears of the Kingdom 3 times. The initial trailer, the follow-up trailer back at like E3 2021, and then this one. Not a lot of combat focus in any of them. And then, of course, not a lot of dungeon focus as well. So that's stuff
that Band-Aid off this yet. They're going to be like, hey, guess what? Everything you loved about Breath of the Wild, like weapon durability, it's back, baby.
They're going to do another trailer where it just starts raining. And people will be like, no, not the rain. No, but Zelda games are always great. I love Breath of the Wild. I don't have any inclination to revisit it just because it took me like 150 hours. But I'm excited for this because I do miss the traditional dungeons, but I think everything else at Breath of the Wild provided more than made up for it. So even if this kind of tweaks it even a slight bit, I'm excited for this.
And I think May's a good time. Under like 20 minutes, dude. Come on.
Oh yeah, I could just like I can just get good at the game and run to Ganon's
Just slingshot yourself to Ganon's
castle. You cut down a log or something, and you use a bomb and explode the log to fly to the castle.
Yeah, just I don't know what you're talking about. Breath of the Wild is a pretty short game.
Here's another major announcement that's definitely in our purview, and it's something that has been kind of rumored for a long while, and that is we've got the formal announcement of Octopath Traveler 2. So Octopath Traveler obviously was one of the surprise releases, the first HD 2D game back in, 2018? I don't remember exactly when.
Yeah, I think it was 2018.
We had Champions of the Continent get its global release earlier this year. Octopath Traveler 2 was announced at the Nintendo Direct and then followed up. I forget if it was a TGS specific stream or just a Square Enix publisher thing afterwards. Yeah. So it has 8 new protagonists. They still spell Octopath with the first letter of their names. And alongside some of the press release material for Octopath Traveler 2, they do mention that even though each protagonist has their own distinct starting location and their own stories to tell, this time, Octopath Traveler 2 will exhibit additional stories that unfold between the protagonists as their journeys progress, which was obviously one of the big...
Let's not bury the lead here, too. Like, it's not just coming to Switch, it's also coming to
good point.
PS5, PS4, and PC, like, all simultaneously with the Switch release at February 24th.
Which, of course, means that we have to talk about, I know exactly where James is going. A lot of us, I know, will appreciate the PC release right away because Octopath Traveler eventually made its way to PC. James, where did Octopath Traveler also eventually make its way to?
This is fucking funny. So the original Octopath Traveler, when it came to PC, it also came to Xbox. So the first one is not available on PlayStation, and the second one is not going to be available on Xbox, and that's like the only difference in platforms between the two, and it's really weird.
Yeah, they did a switcheroo here out of nowhere. I don't know if they have like any plans to release the first Octopath on PlayStation. It's just a weird decision.
We're waiting for that Game Pass check.
It's interesting to me because like when Square published the full like direct feed trailer for this game, like when I watched it reminded me that I've never actually seen an HD 2D game in 60 FPS because I never got the PC release of Octopath, and then like all the other 2D games like Live Alive Remake, that's 30 FPS only on Switch. Champions of the Continent, only on 30 FPS on mobile. Like
Triangle Strategy.
Yeah, Triangle Strategy. Like as of the moment, only on Switch.
More on that later.
Yeah, yep. And yeah, so it's kind of weird to me, like seeing Octopath 2 in 60 FPS. I was like, oh yeah, HD2D games can run at 60 FPS. My bad. You were going on like about the changes or enhancements coming to this game from the prequel.
The two major changes, there might be other ones that are dotted around the different press releases, and especially the couple times that this game got shown from different sources throughout the week, is that the way that they're calling their combined paths are called crossed paths, stories that feature two travelers. And in the press release, basically, it literally says the Dancer and Warrior Part 1. So basically, it literally just says this is the story of these two characters. So part of me seems like that seems a little bit mechanical, but it might be the best way that they can implement it, so that they can have, you can. I'm guessing not every single pairing will be, because you can do math and figure out that would be quite a lot, but just interesting ways that they can say, we're going to have multiple stories tie these characters together rather than just have like 8 completely parallel narratives that don't intersect in any way. And then the other thing that was detailed was that the path actions, like how Terion could steal or Olberic can challenge people to duels or whatever, will change based on a day-night cycle. I don't know if you really got a lot of specific detail on this, other than that these path actions will change from day to night, allowing for more variability and more variety.
There's one very minor tidbit about the day-night cycle that's not really obvious in like what they showed, but like the time will pass in game, but players can also change day and night with a single press of a button. Like they can just manipulate it on the fly. On that, so they don't have to wait for the game to like get access to a certain path action for a character. And they also said like the music will change seamlessly with that, and like this whole thing is like there's no loading screen; it just happens seamlessly from there. And a very big focus of this game is the music. Yasunori Nishiki is back for the OST for this game.
And he did a wonderful job.
Yeah, he does an amazing job, like both on Champions of the Continent and on the first Octopath Traveler. And then like this game is just gonna have so much music. They're saying like there'll be alongside like unique themes for like every location in the game. Like there'll be another very different like a mix or arrangement for that music, depending on the name, if it's day or night. So it's just gonna be a lot of music, new music, and that's very exciting.
And actually, now that I look at some of the details that came out after the initial announcement in the Nintendo Direct, we got some bios and some synopsis on 2 of the characters in specific. The warrior Hikari and his 2 path actions. Is it his or her? His. Yeah. His 2 path actions are in the daytime, it's challenge, which I believe matches what Olberic's was. But then in the nighttime, it's bribe, where you spend money to pay for information. So there's an example of the difference in path action from day to night. And then the other character is Agnia, who is the dancer. And path action, path action for the day is to basically get people to party alongside you as like temporary support in battle. And then the other one is to get items from people. It's called entreat. So basically, it's a kind of, I guess, almost like bribe, only instead of getting information, you get items out of them. So just 2 examples there about how the different characters will be able to interact with the world in different ways. In Octopath Traveler, I know a lot of the path actions kind of they serve the same purpose, so that you would, if you set up your party right, even though you can only have 4 of the 8 at any one time, you could cover your bases. So I wonder if they'll do that kind of similarly here, or if having the dual path action will make that a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
But yeah, Square Enix released the details on the first 2 travelers, and I assume they'll just release them in kind of pairs.
Yeah. So besides Hikari, the warrior, and Agnia the dancer, we have Particio, the merchant, and he kind of reminds you of Elvis from Bravely Default 2. Oswald the scholar is kind of like on a prison island. Throne, I'm not sure how to pronounce her name. The thief. Temenos the cleric, Ochet the hunter, which is reminds you of Pongo from Live Alive, and Casti the apothecary, and just like the first game, the first letter in all their names do spell out Octopath. I did go check that. Like, yep, they did the thing again.
But they didn't do it in that order. So people were joking like hapto talk or whatever.
Yeah. I guess like the main thing about this game, like to make it feel different from the first game. To be clear, you don't need to have played the first game to play the second. It is not a direct sequel; it's its own separate story. Like there might be mentions to Astera through some of the NPCs, but it won't be like a featured landmass here. To separate it from the first game, like in the first game, like it was all on Astera. There's like near like villages nearby each other. This one, it's like a big focus of the world map is like they're separated by islands. So there's like a lot of sailing travel in this game. They mentioned that like the OST theme has a bit more jazzy feel to it. And also just they want to feature like all the enhancements that the HD2D engine has like gone through over the years. Obviously, the first Octopath kind of invented that concept, and a lot of the novelty of the first Octopath was that like seeing HD2D for the first time. But now it's been used in like so many other games after that like now they really want to showcase like the advancements to it and like make this more visually distinct. So like you'll see a lot of like the early footage of this game and the gameplay demo they showed at TGS was like you'll see like shadows moving as like as the day and the weather kind of change. So like the world feels more alive. You'll see just a lot of like visual lighting enhancements,
and also just things like camera angles.
Yes,
there's a lot more variety in camera angles rather than Octopath, which is pretty much kind of the same kind of angle top down as
straight on. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but when they were showing off like the battles, for example, in the gameplay demo, like boosted attacks. Like the camera will tilt shift like behind the character as they're about to like swing their powered up attacks. So there's a lot of like camera choreography going on while the first game had very little of that. And as far as like gameplay mechanics, you'll have the familiar break and boost system from the first game where like you hit an enemy's weakness to like take down like a shield, and then like they'll be broken, so they're like vulnerable to attacks and they'll be stunned for a turn. They mentioned that there'll be like a latent power system. It's kind of like a special mechanic system for that you fill up in an ability gauge. They're not always like super powered attacks. One of the latent powers they showed off at the TGS demo was Particio, giving like 4 BP at the beginning of a turn to Hikari. So Hikari could like just pretty much one shot like this enemy mob with like a powered up AoE attack, thanks to like the latent power that Particio gave him.
By the way, not to interrupt you, but did I bury the lead and not say when this was releasing? My bad if I forgot.
No, we did say it was coming up on February 24th after the platforms. Yeah.
All right, so we got Fire Emblem in January, Octopath in February, and Zelda in May.
Yeah,
I think
the one. I mean, obviously, like the one question I have about this game, obviously, they mentioned there'll be like crossover chapters and stories where like the actual main characters get to interact. I'm just worried that like it'll feel too mechanical. I don't want it to be a case where like, hey, there's this crossover story with Hikari and Agnia, and then like it's cool that they got this crossover story, and then like back to like Hikari chapter 2, and where they don't acknowledge each other's existence after that. So I'm very interested to see like if they try to change up the structure of like each character having like their own linear solo chapters. And so forth, because that could feel weird, but we'll see how they handle it. And yeah, I think just overall it's a pretty exciting sequel. I am kind of I was surprised that they're going back to the 4 person party system from the first game, because in Champions of the Continent, the mobile game, they actually had like an 8-man party system where like 8 characters take up the field, and they have like a tag team action for like they can like tag in on the back row partner to like fill in for them while they like passively heal in the background, and then they have like skills that like work off of like synergy skills between the front and the back row character in that game. And I was like, I was thinking, I think they're gonna like put this in the sequel, but so far it doesn't seem like that's the case. So we'll see. Yeah, this looks really cool though. Like I'm optimistic about it, but like I'm also kind of scared as well, because I really thought the first Octopath was interesting, but it had like but that was like purely from like, oh, it really brought HD 2D, and like the OST was really nice, and like a lot of like the narrative structure was like, I don't know.
The next game we'll talk about is one that I think some people were expecting out of TGS, but I don't know if they were expecting it to show up first at the Nintendo Direct of all things. And that is the newest Atelier game from Gust. And it is, to some people's no surprise, a follow-up to Atelier Ryza. So now it is a full trilogy. We've got Atelier Ryza 3, Alchemist of the End, and The Secret Key. Showed up first in the Nintendo Direct, and then we got some follow-up trailer and footage from Koei Tecmo and Gust. It will be releasing also in February for Nintendo Switch, PC, and PlayStation consoles. And I think our main Gust, proponent here is James, who spoke very highly of especially Ryza 2, and I believe that Ryza 2 snuck into our top 10 for the year.
Top 5.
Oh, it was top 5. So I'm assuming that you... Go ahead.
Also, I feel like that seems like stolen valor. I'm pretty sure Chow has definitely played more Gust games than I have.
I definitely have.
He's like, yes, I have. But do you think
the best part about this game's announcement is not really about Ryza. We finally got playable boss. The school bully has finally become your best friend.
Yeah, so he's this character in the Ryza series who has like a bit of a character arc where it's like he's a little snob in one, does something that's really dumb, feels terrible about it, and then in two, he's like, you can see he's actively trying to become a better person. And like there's a scene where it's like, yeah, it'll probably be playable in Ryza 3, which was basically what Gus was telling you, and now we got the official confirmation that he is Bro is now actually part of the team.
Oh, I did not realize that Octopath Traveler 2 and Ryza 3 literally had the same release date.
Yep.
So there you go.
Good luck to Octopath Traveler 2. He's got stiff competition. So we actually did have a chance to send over a few interview questions to the head of Gus and the producer on the game, Junzo Hosoi. And this is actually not the first time that we've had a chance to interview him about the Ryza, well, not Ryza series, the Atelier series. But yeah, like check it out. There's a bunch of questions about like overall like game design and like what are some of the like changes for Ryza 3 versus Ryza 2. I did ask.
Also, Junzo loves Master Chief.
Yeah,
apparently.
yeah. So like a friend of the site, Mikhail, who writes for Mock Reactor and Touch Arcade, earlier this year asked them about if there was ever any chance that the Atelier series could come to Xbox, and the comment that he made then was like, oh, if there's enough demand. So I figured, well, when we sent the questions over, might as well do a follow-up question, see if anything's changed. And we got that little golden nugget of nothing at this time, but he would really like to because he's a big fan of Master Chief.
Do you think he really is a big fan of Master Chief, or do you think he's just like, Xbox, Master Chief, he seems cool?
Yeah. I don't know, but it's funny either way. So
we're saying Master Chief confirmed for the next Atelier game.
There we go. Crossover event of the century. Yeah, but Atelier is not coming to Xbox, and neither is Octopath Traveler 2. So what are Xbox fans going to be doing in February? I don't know yet.
Well, long if that comes out then.
No, that's a good point. More on that later. I think we probably have at least one headline on that later in this giant podcast. But yeah, obviously we've had a couple people on staff that thought really highly of the Ryza series, and Sophie 2 did not quite hit that same bar, seemingly. So it'd be interesting to see how well Ryza 3 does, as purportedly like the culmination to Ryza's story. And this is the first full trilogy. Well, I know like the Atelier series is designed in trilogies, just typically changing protagonists. Is that correct? But this is the first time we've had a single protagonist through 3 games?
Yeah. So basically the Arland trilogy had Totori, Maruru, and what was Verona? The Dust trilogy had Aisha, Esken Logi, and Shali. And then the what's the name of what Mysterious trilogy had Lydian Soel, Furus, and Sophie, was it? I think that's right. So yeah,
I think so too.
Generally they have different protagonists for each game in like the trilogy. But Ryza was the first time where like a protagonist returned with Ryza 2, and now it's like first Atelier protagonist and quite possibly the only Atelier protagonist, unless they do this immediately next time. That's going
with
to
Sophie.
have
And loves Ryza. If there's anything to be noted for all the screenshots of TGS this week, Japan really loves Ryza.
I wonder why.
I think a lot of people do. So,
Ryza?
It's so funny. Like everyone talks about her character design. It's like, oh man, how sexualized it is. And I mean, yeah, but the actual games themselves, it's funny. Like the games themselves doesn't sexualize anything to the point where I've like, especially Ryza 1, I feel comfortable like recommending that to like anyone.
Yeah, and you thought obviously really highly of the second game especially, so hopefully the third game hits that same bar. So
yep.
So yeah, obviously we do have the announcement trailer as well as the interview where we were able to ask them some questions and get some feedback on the design aspirations for the game and things like that. All right, I do know this is sort of in a wheelhouse. We do cover these sorts of games sometimes, but I know as soon as the Nintendo Direct closed, people were like joking or memeing that everything was farming sims, and there were a decent number of farming sims. One of the ones that was on there was an announcement of Rune Factory 3 Special will release on the Switch at some point in 2023. Along with a casual like side announcement that a new game in the Rune Factory series is in development, but we won't have details quite yet.
Not quite. The announcement on the Nintendo Direct was specifically there is a new Rune Factory series in development.
Oh, not a new game, a new
sound
series.
like it's a sort of spin-off. So we'll have to see what exactly that means, but it was very interesting wording. Very interesting wording.
I mean,
so as someone who's not played the Rune Factory games, like are the special releases like HD remasters or remakes or like what the special like, when it has a special tagline on it? All right,
it's a remaster. But the third one, this third special, it's gonna have a lot of new content in it apparently because 3 is really aged because it used to came out for the DS and they added a lot of things over the years in the game and they kind of hint that there is going to be a lot of new quality of life content in there.
How does Rune Factory 3 like? What's the perspective on it or perception on it from like Rune Factory fans? Like, is it like
depending on who you ask? It's either the best or second best in the series.
Oh wow, okay.
It's my personal favorite. It has a lot shorter pace of the game, and because of that, they kept trying to time gate you in the further games with town events. Because people found that people were beating Rune Factory 3 way too fast. You could probably like get this game done in 10 hours probably. And it's like, okay, we got to time gate the players somehow. So let's add randomized events to screw the players over. And I hate town events. But
yeah, they definitely overcorrected because especially on 3DS, I think they improved it in special. But on 3DS, because the way that Rune Factory 4 was kind of segmented, there was like a 3-act structure. You had to, I think you were gated behind getting married before you could do the 3rd act or something like that.
You weren't gated behind a marriage, but I know in the second game, I mean the third game is as soon as you get married, the game's over and that's it. And that's probably why they hinted in the trailer saying there's a lot of new things added post marriage, Or
they're saying that like life doesn't end as soon as you get married now. Oh no.
I think the worst thing about the third game was that the kids that you have were like mindless robots that only say one sentence. And I think they had to do something about that. They had to change that part. So yeah. The third game has the most quirky characters in the series. Okay. I would really recommend it if you like wacky, quirky characters in this one. Because none of the games have the same charm as this one when it comes to quirky characters.
I'm interested to see how in the just like there's developing like rivalry behind the scenes now with like the Rune Factory and Harvestella coming. It's like people are starting to eye Harvestella. It's like, is it gonna give me what Rune Factory didn't?
Well, there's one thing that Rune Factory doesn't give you, or at least in the third game. There's a girl that will tell you that you will die in a tornado as her confession, that she'll love you. So.
Oh
yeah!
Say that one more time, a little bit slower. The girl is in a tornado when she confesses?
No, she will tell you that I want you to die in a tornado or something like that. I can't remember the exact quote, but because this girl, her way of expressing her love is to say the opposite. No. So,
Sundere.
She's basically telling you, I wish you die in a tornado or something like that. And that's her confession to you.
And then people are like, wow, she's just for me, for real.
She has such a way with words.
And because like none of the characters understand her, so she's kind of like an outcast in the town, right? So yeah. But yeah, I don't think Harstella has a character that will tell you to die in tornado when she confesses her true love to you.
Oh, sorry,
So I did not grab a headline for Harvestella from the Nintendo Direct. Was it just a demo announcement? Is that pretty much what it was?
Yeah.
Only on Switch.
Get a trailer.
Or on consoles, I mean.
Yeah, I mean, the Harvestella stuff is, I think it's maybe loaded a little bit later, but yeah, the main thing for Harvestella is, a demo release for Switch on that day. No demo coming for the PC version. And, they're just like, and a new trailer. They also showed like a gameplay demo during their TGS presentation, but nothing too new for it.
Mm-hmm. All right, here's something that I'm like grinning to myself as we look at, just because this is silly. All right, as we were looking forward to TGS in last week's podcast, we did know that the Tales of Studio over Bandai Namco was going to show something, and we predicted that it's probably not time to see a new title announced quite yet, so we'd probably see a remaster. And we said maybe a Zilla pairing, maybe a Legendia. How many people expected that we would get the announcement of a Tales of Symphonia remastered? How excited are we for this?
I feel like we don't need to run Bamco's PR for them. They're calling this remastered. It's just the port.
Yeah, Adam, I got really blindsided by this.
The sad part is the best version is still the GameCube version.
Well, okay, let's break it down. Okay, so Tales of Symphonia Remastered coming early 2023 for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Switch. At the time, we didn't know what this was going to have. Like the email that we got initially was like, quote unquote, HD visual enhancements, gameplay improvements, and new features. Later on, when the official website for Tales of Symphonia Remastered came out, they did confirm, yes, this is still going to be in 30 FPS. It will not get a frame rate boost. It'll still be based off the PS3 version. It's the graphics are getting slightly touched up, being a little bit more saturated, a little bit more like kind of sharper. And then they revealed like kind of the specs for it with on all the platforms it's being released on. It'll be go up to 1080p max for Switch, PS4, and Xbox One. On Switch, on TV, tabletop, and handheld, it'll go up to 720p. They'll all be in 30 FPS. There's no online play at all for any of these. They do support local multiplayer up to 4 players on all the platforms. And that's pretty much like the long and short of it.
I saw some people saying like, why no PC release? It's like, well, it pretty much just is the PC release.
Tales of Symphonia on PC is like $15 right now, and it's probably going to be in a better state than the actual like remaster, quote unquote.
And I know it's been on sale. Like for all we're kind of taking the goofing on Namco here. They do often put their PC offerings in the series on pretty deep discounts. I know Tales of Symphonia, I'm pretty sure if you wait, you can get it for $5 on PC. I don't know the status of PC mods to get it to 60 FPS, but it's been on PC for like 7 years. Still. So I'm sure it's yeah.
Wasn't it like if you try to 60 FPS, the game speeds up by double or something?
As far as I know, that you can't. There have been no 60 FPS, like stable 60 FPS mods for the PC release of Symphonia.
And I know some people have said like, well, the logic's tied to it. It is what it is. But the GameCube version was 60 FPS. That's kind of like why this is different from other games that have like that logic issue, kind of that bugbear that prevents it from being higher frame rate. Is that this game 20 years ago when it released was 60 FPS on GameCube, and it hasn't been 60 FPS on any other console. Since.
I think the gist of it is like when they made the PS2 version back in the day, that game ran at 30 FPS or something like that, but they added a bunch of new content, and now they didn't want to go back to using the GameCube base or something to port it or something. That's what.
Basically all the remasters since then have been pasted on the PS2 version.
Yeah, it might just be a source code issue as well. Like maybe they don't have the GameCube source code anymore.
Yeah, I do want to be a little bit like positive here. Like as soon as this was announced, or like within the week, I love Symphonia. I'm a bit nostalgic. I'm a normie that played it on GameCube as my first Tales of game. I still have a lot of fond memories of the story and the music and all that. I think it's a really great game, though admittedly I haven't played it in like 10 years. So Symphonia is a good game, but this just seems like a weird way to reintroduce it to the audiences. Go ahead, Joe.
I just feel like the new content wasn't worth it. I'd rather play the game at 60 FPS over the new content.
I honestly don't even remember like what exactly the new content is. It wasn't something quite as substantial as like Vesperia's, where it was a different character.
I think it's really weird that like the PS3 release was the only one that had Dawn of the New World, the sequel in it. Every other freaking release just doesn't have that. PC doesn't have it. This new remaster doesn't have Dawn of the New World. Like, Dawn of the New World gets clowned on, but it's like it's not an absolutely awful game either. So I mean,
well, and just because it might not hit the same bar doesn't mean it should be like shunned and like held hostage on the Wii or wherever.
Yeah. It's just the only time we ever saw it was like obviously the original we released, and then when it was bundled with Tales of Symphonia on the PS3, and that's it. So, very weird.
So no remaster of Jilla, no remaster of Graces.
This is
or Legendia.
I think this only feels bad because you see every other like HD remaster kind of doing right by the original releases of those games, especially one of the big ones coming later. But as of now, it's just like this one feels like a stick in the mud because every other HD remaster feels like they're doing right by the original game.
Yeah, and I think the main thing for me here is that they're calling it a remaster, but it's like even on like PS4 Pro or Xbox One X or even like PS5 or Series X, it's still 1080p.
Yeah,
it's still 1080p.
That's bizarre.
So like the price for this is going to be $40, and it's like it doesn't come with anything that's not already in the PC version, which you can get running at 4K no problem, with like fan enhancements for like the outlines and like each like 4K texture packs and whatnot. That's like, if you're going to play this, like if you want to replay Symphonia, first off, you should probably just emulate the GameCube version. But second, it's like, if you really, really want the content that was like added to the PS2 version, don't buy this. Buy the PC version. It'll run on a toaster. Don't do this to yourself.
I almost want to look up like what the PS2 editions even were, but that's kind of a tangent at this point because
unless you're playing costumes, like little mini quests that lead to like new costumes, and that's like the main thing.
I mean, Tales of Symphonia is still a great game, and I guess they might have softened the blow a bit if they're just saying it's coming to Switch, and they didn't purport it as this remastered special thing. They're just like it's a port. We're bringing it to Switch. You can play it on the go now. It is what it is. I don't know. Did we get a release date for this?
No.
Early next year.
Yeah.
Okay. Another new announcement. We're going to kind of go into a list of Square Enix-based announcements that first showed up in the Nintendo Direct, but then several of these were followed up on in later streams throughout the week in some cases. The first one I have listed here is the announcement of a new game in the Theatrhythm series. Theatrhythm Final Bar Line is releasing on Nintendo Switch and PS4 on February 16th of 2023. They released a trailer going over some of the details of the announcement and some of the things that we'll be seeing in those. I think Josh is the one that has expressed a lot of interest in this series specifically, and I know James typically likes games of this genre as well. I don't know if he likes the Theatrhythm series specifically.
I can tell you this release is very clearly based off of the arcade game All-Star Carnival,
which is good, very good.
Yeah, it's really good. It's kind of funny because like from the outside looking in, like I like a bunch of people are like, man, there's so many rhythm games coming out recently, and as someone that's really into rhythm games, not really. Most of the like big rhythm game releases we've gotten in the last couple like years have just been arcade ports, which means that no actual new rhythm games besides for like Melody of Memory. That was the last real new rhythm game that's come out in like a long time. I'm so excited for this because my round one no longer has the All-Star Carnival.
They took out the cab.
Yep. It was also one of those things where it was very weird. Where if you wanted to like save your high scores using like a Nessica card, you kind of didn't want to because like you would be forced into unlocking songs, but if you did not use a card, you just had everything unlocked on that cabinet from the start. So it was like, why would you do that? But yeah, like what I have played of All-Star Carnival is very promising. I do like the little changes they make to it, where it's like you have like two well, I think they were trackballs on the actual cabinet, but obviously it's going
Yes.
to be the analog sticks this time, where it's like you can swipe in different directions with those, and now
Goodbye
there's
your
like,
analog sticks.
oh god, do not get this on Switch. You'll get Joy-Con drift almost immediately. Get the
even on
PS4 version.
even on your DualShock, you might get drift as well. Yeah, your analog switch is going to be destroyed at higher difficulties in this game. Like they already announced like a bunch of, like, I think this will have like almost 400 songs at the base release, and then you're going to have even more through DLC from like other Square Enix properties like World Ends With You, Mana series, Octopath, Live Alive, Nier, and more. Saga.
There's so many Saga songs that
Yes.
on the website where it's like, okay, here's all the Final Fantasy songs. Now here's other Square Enix titles, and it's like, okay, so here's a list of like Chrono Trigger, The World Ends With You, Mana, etc., etc. And then like right below that, there's an entire section dedicated to here's every Saga game in existence.
Yeah, you will not run out of songs to play at any time in this game. It is so chock full with content. You have, your basic like rhythm game for like the score battles. It just supports up to like online 4-player multiplayer. This also has like the RPG mode that you saw like the original like Theatrhythm games on the 3DS. So like you can like build up your characters, level them up, like that, and equip them with items. I'm excited. This looks really good. I wish this had a PC release, but at least I'll take PS4.
I will say though, one thing that's very, very disappointing is that there is a set of songs that you need to get the digital deluxe edition or above to get.
Oh, really?
There's like a set of 27 extra music tracks that you just cannot buy separately, which means that if you want to have like, and I think the thing that's really fucked up is I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure one of those 27 songs is Tsuteki Dane, which means that if you want to play that song, which obviously is a major fucking song as far as like Final Fantasy music's concerned, you need to get the digital deluxe edition or the premium digital deluxe edition.
All right,
that's kind of fucked up.
Fine, I'll pay that stupid expensive edition.
Yeah, so it has the base 385 songs, additional 27, like you said, for the digital deluxe, and then to the upcoming DLC with the Saga, World Ends With You, Live Alive, and all that. So who knows once all is said and done how packed this will be, but it seems like it's going to be pretty damn comprehensive.
Yeah, it's obviously the idea is to have like over 100 characters from FF in the game, like usual Theatrhythm, like just sticks in as many FF characters in it as possible, for as the people dancing in your party and be part of your party members and all that. Like there's going up to FF15, I believe, right? There's no FF16 anything in it yet, so as far as we know, just everything up every FF up until 15.
Yeah, and the 14 songs only goes up to Shadowbringers right now.
Okay.
But those are both things that they potentially could add
as DLC.
Could add on to, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, if there's anything that the Theatrhythm loves to do is like long-term DLC support.
Mm-hmm. We finally got a release date, and I think Adam might be one of the most excited for this, for the remaster for Romancing Saga Minstrel Song. It will release on December 1st. So this might not be too big of a deal, but for our site coverage, we go December to December. So Romancing Saga will be one day out of the running for potentially best remaster of the year for our site, which might not matter too much. But December 1st, Adam, I don't know if there was anything specific you saw, because we got some more details about like new playable characters in the remaster.
Correction. I just looked it up. It's not Tsuteki Dane that's one of the digital deluxe only ones. It's to Xanarkand. You have to. So you
pretty
have
much the same tier, though.
Yeah.
Okay. Like when you start up Final Fantasy X, that's the first thing you hear.
Yep.
So.
Oh my god, I am so fucking pissed. Distant Worlds from FF11 is also part of that. Square.
All right. We're buying the super expensive edition. James.
I can't believe Square Enix has done this.
Romancing Saga Minstrel Song. How hype?
So I actually didn't really play this that long ago. I feel like 2 years, not even. I played one character. I really, really liked this game. I wrote up why I like this game, and also just the Saga series in general. And I didn't play anymore because I was hoping it would get a remaster at the time, and it did. So the thing is with these Saga remasters is that they seem to add like similar, additions to, Romancing Saga 3, Saga Frontier, things like we have multiple characters. You have 8 playable characters, and in the original game, if you do a playthrough of the game and then you want to play as a new character, you're starting from scratch. Where now they added a new game plus mode, so any character that you like trained up, got equipment for, whatever, in your one playthrough, if you recruit them again, they'll be powerful again. So that's conducive to like replays. And the way that Saga or Minstrel Song is basically designed is, it's pretty much impossible to see everything that game has to offer in one playthrough, just the way it's designed. So you want to play it more than once, and this will help you do that. And then it also has, high speed mode. It seems like people think there's now an event rank listing in the game. If you're not familiar with event rank, it's a Saga thing. And then they did add new playable characters. Some of them are like key story characters that were in the original game, just weren't playable, but now they are. And then there's like super bosses and things like that. So it looks, and obviously a lot of visual changes and menu changes as well. It looks pretty good. Obviously the art style takes a little bit of getting used to, but I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah, they even mentioned like on the Tokyo Game Show stream, like they created new assets for Minstrel Song Remastered because the sorceress Aldora, for people who play that game, no Aldora, is now playable, and like there's like an event story, new event story with Aldora. That's like they actually.
If I remember correctly, she is in the original game, but she like possesses a different character. So now it's like she's playable as her own character rather than possessing
her
someone
original
else.
form. Yeah.
So
it's pretty cool. Like I watched them play it at the TGS stream, and it looks awesome. I'm really excited to revisit this game. I like you. Like I played it way long ago, but I only played like through one character as well, and it's I'm so happy that like it's so weird that like the Saga series has like gotten like the golden treatment when it comes to like their re-releases.
They're the opposite of Tales of Symphonia Remastered.
Yeah.
Yeah, because obviously Saga Frontiers Remaster, we gave our best remaster award to back when it released. Romantic Saga Minstrel Song seems like it's taking at least a similar level of care in terms of trying to put the best foot forward for people that did not play this game when it originally came out on PS2, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So yep, December 1st for that one. We also got a new trailer for Crisis Core's remaster or remake. This is one of the ones where it might be you could go either way on it. This is for Crisis Core Final Fantasy VII Reunion. This was already announced previously in the year for a winter release, but we didn't know specifically what that meant. I would have guessed that it would have meant a January-February release, but turns out it's releasing on December 13th. So Crisis Core's remaster will be releasing also in the calendar year. We got a new trailer for that at Nintendo Direct. I think we might have got a few more details and some gameplay footage after that from the TGS streams. And on top of that, James was able to actually go. Were you able to go hands-on with this game over the last week as well?
On both PS5 and Switch.
Yeah, so I guess I'll say this is coming out on PC. Everything. It's coming out. This one is actually coming out on Xbox consoles. So I'll hand it off to you. What you thought of your time with?
You mentioned that the December 13 release date.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So first off, as people have definitely taken to in my impressions, the Switch version is surprisingly enough actually really, really good. Like it seems like during gameplay, it's like it's targeting 720p. Like only during cutscenes, it really noticeably dips the resolution, and like the frame rate's good and solid. It's like not a stuttery frame droppy mess like I think people kind of expected looking at the graphics.
Is it targeting 60 on the Switch handheld?
I believe so. One of the things that's confusing, I think, is that at the Square Enix event at in LA, one thing I noticed is that they had motion smoothing on the TVs.
Oh, okay. No.
So I played it in handheld mode on Switch, and I think it's 60 FPS. I think it's 60.
Okay.
Even if it's not, if it's not 60, it's definitely a very smooth 30. Nothing to worry about there. If you want to play it on Switch, that's a very good version of the game.
Okay.
It looks great. It plays great. Don't worry about it. But yeah, I did notice that the PS5 version obviously looks very good. That's definitely 4K 60. It's a remaster of a PSP game. Nothing to worry about there. But yeah, that was probably the demo. No, definitely the demo I played that was the shortest because it was basically just the very tail end of chapter 2. So you fought these two ogre-looking dudes, and then you had the fight against a couple of Genesis copies, and then a fight against Ifrit, and then I was done. So I did that twice, both on PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch.
How did it feel? How did it feel to play? Like I'm not sure if like you've gotten to play the PSP.
So I hadn't played the PSP version. So before I wrote up my impressions, I booted up the PSP version just to see. I did the opening battle, and then I immediately deleted it off my Vita.
Wow.
Okay.
It is a night and day difference with the remaster. It's an actual like action RPG now. It actually feels good to play. You don't have like this weird like system where you have to choose your action on a like slate of actions on the bottom right.
Mm-hmm.
You just have a basic ass attack button. You have a quick.
You have a right analog stick.
Yeah, you don't have to crab claw L and R for the camera.
Yeah, you've got like an actual like attack chain, like attack combo. You've got a decent dodge. You've got access to like shortcut keys to do your like skills and like spells. It's like it works really, really well. It actually feels good, and like especially when you're going up against bosses when they're like channeling their strong attacks, you can attack them, and if you deal enough damage to them in a period of time, you can even cancel their special attacks. But
yeah, I noticed that actually. It's like with some of the footage I watched, like usually like in the old version, like they have a wind up to it. On this one, like they have like an ability bar, and like as you like put down that ability bar, you can like lessen the damage on it after like meeting certain thresholds. And if you get it take it out completely, like you said, it'll just cancel it completely as well, which is a really interesting addition to the gameplay.
So yeah, it's like it's definitely a case where I hadn't played Crisis Core yet, and it's like if you haven't played Crisis Core yet, as far as I'm concerned, looking at the original versus the remaster, especially with how it plays, just wait for the remaster.
I remember for the original, because obviously it was PSP, so one little nubby, things like that. First of all, I'm looking at like some of these characters like Cisne and things like that, where I played this game, but my memory is I'm old. It's shot. I'm like, I don't remember what happens. I remember how it ends, but I don't remember. Of course, everyone does.
Everyone remembers how it ends.
Yeah. But I'm interested in revisiting this just to like, because if Final Fantasy VII is Vogue again. Who knows what Square Enix is going to sneak in here for their ongoing revival project of this series.
It's a faithful recreation.
Well, you say that, but they changed all the voice actors, which I know some people are really passionate about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My favorite thing is everyone saying, "I'm afraid Reunion won't have a voice delivery as good as this." Where it's Zach asking NGO, it's like, "Where are you at? What are you up to? World domination? That's not even funny, man."
Me, Gungaga.
Yep.
But I'm looking forward to replaying this. I don't know. I didn't really have a lot of attachment to the old voices, but I know a lot of people did.
I actually don't think they're that good. The new casts are superior in every way.
So I am going to be putting up a PSA after this podcast, just because it seems like not many people. Like, it's not embargoed information, so I can just say it. If you're not a fan of the new voices, there is a Japanese voice track. You can use it on the English version. So
okay, like I can have gaps.
Is there any doubt?
No, not really. But some people won't believe you until it's like actually confirmed. So
yeah, we know that all too well on the site.
Well, if someone asks me what the source is this time, I can just tell them my eyes.
They won't
your ears?
Like,
my ears. That too.
They won't believe you. But yeah, cool to hear. It's looking really sharp. I want to play it again.
Adam, I might need your help on this one because this one I know has some very particular details that I want to make sure I get them straight. So back in that February Nintendo Direct that we mentioned at the start of this podcast, we learned of a remake for the first Front Mission game was coming to Nintendo Switch. Front Mission First Remake, being published by Forever Entertainment. We got a follow-up for this Nintendo Direct where we learned that we are also getting remakes for the second and third Front Mission games.
You've already made a mistake.
See, I knew I would. All right, I'll take it away.
So, I mean, I've never played Front Mission, so I'm not like an expert. But back in February, they announced 1 and 2. That's it. 1 was announced with the summer date, and 2 was just later. And then now they announced 1 is coming out in November. No hard date, just November. So it's missed the summer date it was given earlier. 2 is coming out next year, and then they also announced they are doing 3, which is new. They didn't announce that before. So there's 1, 2, and 3, all confirmed being remade. 1 is coming out in November. 2 is coming out next year. 3 is presumably next year, but actually they haven't said anything. Just 3 is also coming. One thing that's sort of interesting is that if you go to the developer web pages on these, or the official website for these, they each list like a different developer. And I don't know.
This was the part. Yeah, this is the part I want to make sure we get. Yeah.
Yeah. So the company that's like announcing this, it's technically not Square Enix. It's a Square Enix IP, but it's Forever Entertainment, who's based in Poland, and they did the what is it? The Panzer Dragoon remake. I hope I have that right. But anyways, so. The official website for Front Mission 2 also lists. Let me grab it here. Storm Trident, which I've never heard of, as a developer. Some company named Storm Trident. And Front Mission 3 has Megapixel Studios. So it's just kind of interesting, I guess, like we have 3 different studios working on the remakes.
All hands on deck of like studios you really haven't heard of. Hop on. You want to work on Front Mission? Here's your chance. I'm like, all right, let's go.
But yeah, they're all coming. They're all only announced for Switch. They're Switch exclusive right now, which is sort of interesting. But yeah, there's 1 is the first one coming, and that's coming out in November sometime.
I'm sure, I think it's really weird. I'm excited. I'm excited as all hell too because I love the Front Mission series. So the more re-releases of the older games that being more accessible to like a modern audience, sure, why not? It's hard to get a hold of them these days if you're not going the emulation route. I wonder what like the end goal is for this because you don't make a series of remakes of like a certain series unless you have like a broader goal, right? So I hope they're all awesome. I'm here for it. I love these giant robot mech strategy RPGs. Yeah.
A couple other small things that came out of the Nintendo Direct. One of them is something that I think we were kind of expecting. Obviously, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 we've talked about a lot over the summer since its release. We do know that it has a pending expansion pass. We learned a little bit about the first, or I guess the second wave from the expansion pass. We knew kind of based on the in-game menu that it was going to include like challenge battles and a new hero. We learned from the Nintendo Direct that it will be coming out on October 13th. The new hero is named Ino. She is a mechanical girl that apparently utilizes ether cylinders in some way, which is kind of like, hey, I've got a ton of those in the game, so that works out for me.
Sure
I know some. Say that again.
Are you sure that wasn't Mountain Dew that she was chugging?
Yeah, there's some amusing screenshots of her really sipping on some high ether cylinders.
They also did give a little bit of a teaser for the Wave 3 of the expansion pass, where we already know another hero will be announced, but there's an image that teases 2 heroes participating in battle at once. Obviously, in the base game, you've got your 6 party members and 1 hero. I saw some people disappointed that this hero wasn't like a crossover, because I do know that Xenoblade Chronicles 2 kind of set the stage for basically being like fan service laden in terms of reintroducing old characters. I saw some people say, like, if they're going to do a mechanical girl, why not just have it be Poppy? Which I'm actually kind of like, why not? But we got a little bit of a trailer.
I like new characters. I'm pro new character. Not everything has to be a crossover with past games. They already technically, without spoiling, Xenoblade 3 kind of already does that.
But yeah, we got there's a few other things that they showed, like some costumes, like there's swimsuits now for the characters, because of course there are.
Yeah, like that.
And
Yeah, that's a challenge. Like for that, those are rewards from the challenge battles. Like they kind of do it with Xenoblade Chronicles 2 as well in that expansion pass. So like the challenge battles come in like several difficulties, and then you're like given like a it's like a time attack challenge with like your party is only like this level. Try to take out these enemies as fast as possible, and then depending on like what rank you get from the time, like you'll get rewarded. So like for some of the challenge battles, you'll earn swimsuits for your main party. And some of them look great, and some of them look like Lanz's swimsuit.
well, I remember if I remember right, in Xenoblade Chronicles 2, whenever you got stuff that you would have like get cosmetic outfits for like your blades, you actually had to equip them. Yeah, you had to equip them as accessories, which was kind of like, well, if I want to have this character wear this, then I have to live with these stats. Where now, obviously, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 has the different, like the wardrobe clothing system. So I think that's a smarter framework for that. So that'll be kind of nice. Though admittedly, like when I got the game, I got some like alternate outfits or whatever, and I never bothered to use them. But I know some people really like being able to dress.
You already have so many alternate outfits too with the class change system as well.
Yeah, it's true. I've never used that either. But yeah, obviously, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is a game that I think most of us feel pretty highly of to different degrees. So we know that Chronicles 2 was well supported after launch, and it looks like 3 will be the same. So we've got the October 13th release for the first hero, and then obviously a tease for the next one. Don't know if that's going to be this calendar year or early next. But they'll be released throughout the end of 2023, which we expect that the final expansion pass update will be something a little bit more major.
Yeah, I'll be honest and be like, I probably won't touch this game again until like the story expansion is around the corner.
Same.
Yeah, I just like there's just so much video game there. Like I need a break for a little bit.
And then here is one that I don't think people were expecting, and that is we got a console port for the Team Asano game Various Daylife. If that name sounds familiar, it's because it originally released on Apple Arcade back in 2019. It is described as an everyday life adventure RPG. Oh, I guess it wasn't, but why did I think it was Team Asano? Maybe it wasn't.
I mean, Asano
has
supervises
the Team
it.
Asano font for the
Yeah.
title.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Asano does is like supervising that project as well.
Oh yeah, I guess they.
Producer.
And so this is now on. I said console port is also on Steam as well. So PC, PS4, and Switch. It is available now on all platforms. And I've seen some people describe this as like Naruto D rank mission, the RPG or whatever, where you're just doing like random tasks throughout the city.
It's Various Day Life.
Yeah, I guess
it doesn't lie to you. The title isn't lying to you.
Not everything needs to be world-ending crisis, okay?
I mean, I don't know how the actual quality of the game is. All I remember is like the Steam rating for the first few days was like mostly negative, and now it's back to mixed. So I think people are loving it.
Relative to your expectations, at least. But yeah, it's. I was surprised at how much his art style kind of looks like Bravely Default 2. It's not quite the same, but it has a similar kind of aesthetic to it.
It's like a prototype of Bravely Default 2's visuals.
Yeah, a little bit. But yeah, I don't know if we'll have anyone like this kind of shadow dropped, and no, I don't think anyone's expecting it. Maybe we'll be able to poke at it before the end of the year, but it seems like it's kind of got, like you said, a mixed rating on Steam. So don't know how interested people are in this, but maybe we'll have some people get the. I don't remember if we have potentially Paige or someone looking at this on the site.
I'm not sure.
No promises, but it is available now. Once we have any sort of relief on the release schedule, maybe someone will look at it. But
I was doing research for this title because I didn't do much research on it when it came out on Apple Arcade. One at the very least with this news, we do know it is possible for RPGs that are previously Apple Arcade exclusive to come out.
Don't get your hopes up about Contagion.
I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying, like, this is an instance. Not saying anything else.
This isn't even the first instance, because there was that game from the Danganronpa creator. I forget the name of it exactly. Fuck. What was it? You know which one I'm talking about, though.
No, I don't. Which one?
World Ends Club?
There we go. World Ends Club, yes.
Yeah, World Ends Club came. But the thing of Fantasian is that literally, like, Sakaguchi's on the record saying that the whole, like, genesis of the project was, I want to make a game for Apple Arcade. and there's photos of Tim Cook at Miss Walker's offices. So I
never say
really,
never.
I mean, yes, there's always a chance of something happening, like a 1% maybe. But I look, Miss Walker's games have never been ported at all.
That's a good point.
I want more people to play Fantasia. I think everyone here wants more people to play Fantasia. We gave it our RPG of the year last year, but it's like, just because this is getting ported, don't assume Fantasia is.
I never said anything. I never said the F word here.
We're implying it though.
Didn't say anything. Two, the development studio that made their various day life, Doki Doki Groove. They previously developed that shut down Valkyrie profile mobile RPG, the Valkyrie Anatomy of the Origin. I was like, oh, they're the ones who worked on this. So, but that's about it. I mean, nothing else to say. I don't dare any other. I don't want to say the F word anymore. Here.
And that's all I had. Here we are, an hour and 40 minutes in, and we're finally through Tuesday's Nintendo Direct. Hooray! No, as always, recently Nintendo Direct has a lot of stuff for our purview, and I don't think we covered absolutely everything, but we hit all the highlights. Obviously, thank you so much to Josh, James, and Adam and Kite as well, especially for looking on the Japanese side. There was one title on the Japanese Nintendo Direct. I might as well bring that up here. Which one was that? It's like the Persona game, only it's like elements of like the periodic table. What was that game?
Oh man, it's like let me go check real fast. It is there we go. Ketsugou Danshi Elements with Emotions for Switch, iOS, and Android in 2023 in Japan. Like you said, it's like the characters in it are like representing elements in the periodic table. Like the core four represent hydrogen, oxygen, carbon, and beryllium, and then they'll have DLC characters that represent other elements like nitrogen, lithium, iron, fluorine, chlorine, and sulfur. And I know Adam was getting pissed. I was like, what the fuck is going on with this game? Because Adam is familiar and works in that field professionally.
I was joking that those three are like three atmospheric elements, and then beryllium, which is like a mineral. It's like this doesn't make sense.
I was like,
maybe beryllium is the outcast.
Yeah,
he's the emo kid. I don't know.
Yeah, these characters will have powers based on the chemical elements they represent, and like it's like the stories like it will take place in a world that will see a doomsday in 50 days. That's all I really know out of it. But yeah, that's like the Japanese side of things. I don't know if it's ever going to come here, get a localization. Yeah. Who knows? But
so announced for Switch and mobile for next year for Japan. Only showed up in the Japanese Nintendo Direct. Kite covered this for us. I do enjoy this line from the coverage. When the hydrogen, carbon, and oxygen characters attack together, it will produce carbonic acid attack. Just like, this is how I'm going to learn chemistry. This is devastating.
You're probably not wrong for some people going into this game. It's like, that's what happens.
So maybe that's why they picked beryllium, because there's apparently some very dangerous uses of beryllium. I'm not sure. I'm not a chemist, but yeah, giving that a shout out as an RPG game that showed up in the Nintendo Direct, though obviously no indication of a Western release. So obviously on Tuesday we also had the Sony State of Play event in the afternoon. Between the two events, I believe it showed up between the two events. We did have one somewhat related announcement that just kind of came out of nowhere, though I think at least one of us here was expecting and hoping for, and that is for Triangle Strategy. So maybe we could have brought this up when we were talking about Octopath Traveler 2. Triangle Strategy, obviously also by Square Enix using the HD2D engine, released earlier this year in March, so we've covered it on previous podcasts. It is coming to PC next month on October 13th. So I know Adam was basically waiting for this because he's like, I'll play it once it comes to PC. Octopath Traveler and Bravely Default 2 both made their way to PC in a similar-ish time frame. So this wasn't completely unexpected, but here it is. So for next month, Adam, are you going to make time for this?
Try. There's so many other things coming out too, but I'll try.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll try is like the mantra of the year.
Good game. I really enjoyed it.
Adam will get to enjoy an HD2D game in 60 FPS.
The amusing thing about this is like there's a bundle with it with Various Day Life on Steam, and it's basically you get this game at like $60, and then you get like Various Day Life for free with that bundle. And then Various Day Life by itself, you just purchase Various Day Life, and it's like $30. So it's like, what a deal! Best value.
Be interesting to see, because I think Triangle Strategy was our most anticipated game of the year, and I don't know if it hit quite that high, but I did think it was pretty good. I'll have to like kind of reflect on it and say like how well did I really think it did relative to other releases of the year. So it'll be interesting to see if Adam gets the chance or others.
It has one of the most memorable cutscenes this year for
I'm
me.
definitely interested in playing Triangle Strategy because I think there might be time for me to play it in between like Kuro 2 and November stuff since
I'm not playing
Monochrome got delayed.
Yeah, there's time now.
James, I can't believe you're skipping Monochrome.
It's coming out in November. Like the
it got
middle of
delayed,
November.
Chow. Chow's so distraught about this.
Yeah, Monochrome movies got delayed because of COVID, basically. So
what the fuck, Chow?
Trying, okay.
Whenever I think of this game, I think of like the main theme that I think you get it only once you beat the game, where it goes like Triangle Strategy Kamino or whatever. I don't know.
Really good.
All right, so we'll move on straight into the Sony State of Play. So Sony offerings usually at these digital events aren't quite as heavy on the RPG or RPG adjacent front as Nintendo's. But what I'm going to do here is that in the Sony State of Play, we also got a lot of, I don't know how to introduce this. We had the Sony State of Play late on Tuesday, and then within like 12 hours, we did know that RGG Studios was also going to have a presentation for upcoming projects from their end for the Yakuza or Like a Dragon series. So across both announcement showcases, we got a lot from RGG Studios, and I mean a lot, more than I think anyone expected. So I'm going to basically bundle that stuff here at the front. And we've got 4 major headlines here. Well, 3 major and 1 moderate headline here. So we could talk about any of these things first, but the first one I'm going to talk about is that at the Sony State of Play, we got the announcement of a remaster for Like a Dragon Ishin, which is a remake of a game that came out early in the PS4 generation, only in Japan for Yakuza Ishin or Gotoku Ishin. So I believe, did you play this game when it came out in Japan, Josh, or no?
Yeah, I played Ishin at its original PS4 release in Japan, which is kind of amusing because this is coming to PS4 also. It's a remake live / remaster. So yeah, Like a Dragon Ishin is coming on February 21st, 2023 for PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, and PC. Simultaneous worldwide release for this game. Very exciting. There's several things different with it from the original version. One, they're remaking this game from the ground up with Unreal Engine 4. That's kind of the big major one. This originally was not a Dragon Engine game. This came out before Yakuza 6. So they obviously did have Dragon Engine at that time.
I think what's really interesting is that they were outright saying that they're switching to Unreal Engine 5. So it's like, instead of continuing to support Dragon Engine, like they're making the jump to Unreal Engine, which is honestly probably a good move. Dragon Engine looks nice, but it's never performed particularly well.
I agree. Yeah. Obviously from the get-go, this is going to be a big recurring theme throughout this thing. They are moving away from the Yakuza brand IP. They are switching over to Like a Dragon now in the West, which brings it to parity with obviously the original series name Japan, Ryuga Gotoku, which translates to Like a Dragon, and obviously that's the name of the studio now. So they're trying to unify it. So this was the first indication of that, and it to me, like, it's not a big deal. Like I think
it makes sense too, because like I haven't played Yakuza 7, but from playing Lost Judgment, I kind of understand what happened there, where it's like, after Yakuza Like a Dragon, it makes sense why Yakuza as a series title does not make sense.
Yeah, I mean, even chapter 12 of Like a Dragon, Yakuza Like a Dragon, it's called like the end of Yakuza. That's a chapter name.
And the one of the heads on the localization team outright tweeted, "I don't know how we could have been any more clear than this."
Yeah, who he recently left. It was like Scott Strickhart, I believe his name was. I sorry if I got the last name wrong, but one of the other big changes coming with the Ishin remake is they are replacing a lot of some of the character models with like later characters that came out of the series with like Yakuza 0 and Yakuza 6 and Yakuza 7 characters. So like in the historical spin-offs for the Like a Dragon series or Ryuga Gotoku series, like with Kenzan, which is on PS3, and Ishin, the likenesses of the characters that appeared in that series are portrayed like through the historical figures. So like in this one, the playable character is Ryoma Sakamoto, and he looks like Kiryu. And then you're aided by Soji Okita, which looks like Majima, and so forth. But a lot of the characters from this game was like were from like Yakuza 1, Yakuza 2, Yakuza 3, up until Yakuza 5, and they're being replaced. So like someone made a really, really great breakdown of this. Cyric Z at Twitter made a great character reference sheet for this. So like Kasahiro Ito from Ishin, he used to be portrayed his likeness was Go Hamazaki originally from Yakuza 3, is now Daisuke Saku Kuze from Yakuza 0. You know, very, very recognizable like face from Yakuza 0. He's definitely like one of the big like bosses from Yakuza 0. Another one is Heisuke Todo. He used to be Shigeki Baba from Yakuza 5, now replaced as Tianyo Zhao from Yakuza Like a Dragon. Just stuff like that. Like it makes it like because there's a lot more recognizable faces that came in Yakuza 0, 6, and 7 that like global fans especially associate with. I think this is a good move that like some of the lesser known characters from Yakuza 3 to 5 are like kind of replaced by like some of the more recognizable faces in this game. Like
it looks like on the original portrayal they leaned heavily in the Yakuza 5, and they had a few characters that were just actor portrayals and not character portrayals. So now that it looks like Yakuza 7 actually gets a lot of representation in the new portrayal of Ishin.
Yeah, I think one of the more amusing was Susumu Yamazaki. He used to be Hiroshi Kagihara from Yakuza 5. Now replaced by Jungi Han for Yakuza 6. And you know, Jungi Han also, quote unquote, does appear in Yakuza Like a Dragon as well. But yeah, so it's really cool. It's looking really, really great. Like the initial reveal trailer, the gameplay, the gameplay trailers and all that. It looks really nice. I'm very excited that this is finally getting localized worldwide. It is a really, really awesome game. It's a different game from any other Yakuza game you've played because like there are 4 fighting styles. It's like basically sword, gun, sword and gun, and fists. That's your 4 fighting styles in the game.
What about fist and gun?
No, sorry.
That's
too high tech.
Okay.
Yeah. There's going to be an interesting game also from the localization side because this is a really, really tough script to localize. There's a lot of very very time sensitive, time era like phrases and like kind of like Japanese like wording and phrasing from that time era that it's very difficult to like kind of how would you translate that to other languages. I'm very interested to see how they handle that as well because this had like I think this game had a glossary that even needed to like define those terms for people who weren't like obviously familiar with that era back then. So
well, if any company would be up to the task, I trust the Yakuza localization. Well, Like a Dragon localization team.
Yeah, they're fantastic. They're legends. So yeah, awesome. February 21st, pretty much on every system except Switch. I guess I did mention it. There was an interview with one of the heads at RGG Studio saying, "Hey, why isn't the Yakuza games coming to Switch?" And then they're like, we don't want to be associated, like, you know, we see like the Switch as like a family friendly, kid friendly sort of device in Japan, and we don't want to like introduce we feel like the Yakuza series is like kind of hardcore, like underground. It's like it doesn't fit the image of the Switch is basically the gist of the answer, which is I guess that's a response. But so I mean that was one of the amusing things coming out of the TGS, all the numerous TGS interviews.
I mean, when you've got like Doom, Skyrim, and Witcher on Switch.
Well, you don't even need to go there. Bayonetta 3 is still technically an IP that's owned by Sega, and that's a Switch exclusive.
Yeah. So I don't know. But
this was our first of many announcements from RGG Studios. It showed up at the State of Play, and this was the first time we obviously saw that they decided not to call it Yakuza Ishin, but Like a Dragon Ishin. People are like, it's a spin-off. Maybe that's what they're using Like a Dragon for. We don't know if that's what they're pivoting to, because it wasn't quite clear for like 12 hours or so. But we kind of knew or expected that we were going to see the next mainline series entry showcased at this RGG Summit, early the next day. And we did. They announced that Like a Dragon 8 is coming in 2024 for modern consoles, not Switch, PlayStation 4 or 5, Xbox Series, and PC. And this is a game that obviously they're going with the Like a Dragon title going forward, as shown. And we got a teaser trailer for it showing 2 protagonists. We got Ichiban Kasuga and Kazuma Kiryu again. And not only that, but Kiryu has kind of a different look to him now on this trailer.
Man, puberty hit Yu Narukami hard.
Kiryu is rocking like a K-pop star hairstyle. It's like kind of more in the front, like stylized with it's like silver, almost platinum hair.
Well, he's pushing like 50.
I feel like there's like a disguise almost. It almost has to be like a disguise. It feels so out of place. It is so funny. I will not every time I look at it, I laugh. I crack up. I'm like, hear you. Okay, this is the funniest thing. But they showcased this trailer at the RGG Summit. Even the MC was like, her first response was like, "What happened to Kiryu? What did you do to Kiryu?" It's wild. It's still very far off till 2024. It's very bizarre. I think James and I are on the same wavelengths. Like, man, they're still gonna release a PlayStation 4, Xbox One game in 2024. That's crazy.
Xbox One will be like 10 years old at that point.
They'll be like, if it's a late 2024 release, because generally that's when Like a Dragon titles release generally is like the fall. They're gonna be just around 11 years old for both the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4.
It's not as old as Kiryu. So yeah.
Obviously we knew or expected that Ichiban would still be a protagonist going forward. Now that we know that based on this trailer and some of the accompanying marketing, that it'll be a dual protagonist between Ichiban and Kiryu. It will still be an RPG like Yakuza 7 or Like a Dragon. The focus will be on cooperation, interaction between the characters. I forget where this showed up, but I saw some people saying that in some of the marketing, Kiryu will have like his own party. So I don't know to what extent these two characters will interact within the game. But like as expected, it will be a turn-based RPG going forward. And more on that later as we talk about some of the other things that RGG Studios introduced. But obviously a ways off, 2024. So only have a little bit of a teaser to go off of for now. I think a lot of us were really endeared to Ichiban after playing through Like a Dragon. I saw someone say on some Twitter or forum post that like, after playing Like a Dragon, I wanted someone like Ichiban in my life. I'm like, yeah, I see that. We all need a friend like him. I saw
Ichiban's a fantastic protagonist, fantastic character.
And I saw some people actually a bit disappointed that Kiryu could potentially like muscle in. Like there is no handing off of the torch, at least not completely.
Oh, this is a weird one, right? Like I definitely understand and to an extent agree to it with those people because they very much push Yakuza 6 as like Kiryu's last game. This is going to be the last time. Like this is the end of the Kiryu saga for the game for Yakuza. Mm-hmm. And for them to and like I even mentioned in my review for Yakuza Like a Dragon that it felt like I couldn't really spoil that Kiryu was in the game, but it felt very off-putting that like why is Kiryu in this game? He kind of like shows up out of nowhere, and it feels like there's a lot of story behind like why he shows up in Like a Dragon that's never explored until the next announcement after Like a Dragon.
Do you want to just take this one?
Yeah, sure. So after they unveiled this, there was another brand new game coming from RGG Studio coming in 2023. It is called Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, coming to PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series X and S, Xbox One, and PC. This is meant to be a story about what happened to Kiryu after the events of Yakuza 6 and leading up to the events of Yakuza Like a Dragon. Basically, after the end of Yakuza 6, he kind of is he kind of goes off the face of the map. Something happens to him at the end of Yakuza 6 that leads all his closest friends at Haruka and his like the orphanage that he looked after to believe that like he's gone, he's dead. So like he kind of like to kind of cut ties with them because he doesn't want the Yakuza ties to like catch up with like the people that he loves. He like kind of erases himself from like their lives using this event that happened at the Yakuza 6. So now at the debut trailer for the Like a Dragon Gaiden, he goes up under the name of a new name, Joryu, and he's staying at Daidoji Temple, and this happens at during 2018 in game. So this is still before when Yakuza Like a Dragon happened. So this is meant to be that the RGT Studio mentioned this is a game meant for like series like longtime series fans, and like they will really like explain the events of like what happened to him after Yakuza 6 and like why he like appeared out, seemingly out of nowhere in Yakuza Like a Dragon, which is what I wanted. So like this is the project that like really excites me the most because I have a lot of questions about it. I'm glad that they're doing this. They say that this is going to be similar to the Kaito Files DLC for Lost Judgment, but it's going to be longer than that and bigger in scope than that. But it's still going to be roughly like half the size of a regular like a Dragon Yakuza game. So it's not. I imagine like it won't be like crazy filled with like side quests or side stories like Kaito Files, but it'll still have a good chunk of like. Go for it.
I saw some people wondering like, does that mean digital only? They haven't really detailed it, but I wouldn't be surprised. Things like that.
Yeah, and also like the RG Studio even mentioned like we recommend people to play this title before Like a Dragon 8 because I assuming whatever happens in this like will like establish the foundation of like maybe the premise of Like a Dragon 8 of like what factions might be involved in it, and also like they want newcomers to play this as well who started with Like a Dragon, just like like this will also establish understanding of like why Kiryu is important in the series and like getting them familiar with him who may have jumped in with Like a Dragon, Yakuza Like a Dragon, but not have played any of like the previous Yakuza games when Kiryu was the protagonist.
Also,
So
this will be a title that uses the old. I say old. That sounds like we're to put it, the traditional brawler style combat.
Yes.
So not the turn based. So for your offerings for RGG Studios games coming out in the next couple of years, you've got Ishin kind of being its own thing. You've got The Man Who Erased His Name being more of the traditional combat, and then you've got Yakuza 8, Like a Dragon 8, being the turn based RPG. So
yeah.
I don't know how they're going to carry that forward going forward if they're going to always have to offer like comparable things for both, because some people really like the brawler style and don't have any affinity to the turn-based. Some people really gelled with the turn-based, or some people are just ambivalent to both. There was obviously, and maybe a little bit more on this later, wondering if Judgment would be the side spin-off series that would be the brawler style going forward, and maybe that's still the case in some ways, but we don't know like what their plans are past Yakuza 8 or Like a Dragon 8. So it'll be interesting to see what their long term, like really long term plans are going forward.
They brought the heat though. In this RGG Summit, they went all out though. It's just crazy. They just had new title, bam, bam, bam.
And then on top of that, the last little news headline here was that the Judgment series, so Judgment released back in 2018, Lost Judgment released last year. We had talked in a few different contexts on the podcast that those titles never made their way to the PC platforms, despite all the other Yakuza games releasing on PC over the last half decade. Potentially, we never knew for certain, but potentially due to talent agency, issues with the platform, with specifically Himura, is that the name? The likeness, the likeness for Yagami. But they shadow dropped both Judgment games on PC on the Steam client last week, so they are both available to play and ready now. Which
we're probably never going to get like an official confirmation of what finally let this to happen, but it has been kind of funny seeing people just assume that since like the titular Johnny died, now we were able to get the Judgment on PC.
Yeah, because they're my understanding is like seemingly like the executive who was like pushing back the most against it because of like anti-piracy stuff. Passed away recently, and then like people are like, oh, maybe that's the reason why, but who knows? We don't know about that. But yeah, you did get hands-on this, Brian. We kind of knew about this in secret, so Yeah, what do you think about?
I don't want to spend too long on this because we still have a ton to talk about this week. Jesus, at the 2-hour mark. But first of all, just on a general sense, the fact that both these Judgment games can now show up on PC, I think, is promising for the future of the sub-series going forward. It's not confirmation of anything, but I think it's just there is more optimism now that this series isn't going to die with Lost Judgment. But again, we don't know. I will say that I came on board with the Yakuza series in 2018 when Yakuza 0 was surprise announced for PC. And ever since then, it's been kind of like a deluge of Yakuza games. It ended up being like about 2 games a year releasing on PC to try to keep up. And now I have played Yakuza 0 through Like a Dragon, all on PC. And I wanted to make time for the Judgment games eventually, but it meant like pulling out my PlayStation 4 and, or I guess the remaster on PS5. And eventually wanting to get to it because they weren't going to release on PC, but this kind of just lowered the bar and just said, hey, it's on Steam now, go get it. So I finished Judgment and I'm like 10 hours into Lost Judgment. And there's a lot to talk about here, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but the thing that endeared me most to Judgment is a spin-off series that stars Takayuki Yagami, who is a ex-lawyer / detective based in Kamurocho, so it has a lot of familiar trappings to anyone that's played a Yakuza game. The general gameplay overview is very similar. The brawling style combat is, it's not the same, but it's evocative of the classic Yakuza combat. The main way that this feels different is based on Yagami's perspective. Is that Kiryu, by the end of like Kiwami 1, at least by the end of Kiwami 2, he's already like a larger than life, almost like legend character, and then he's still a protagonist through like 4 more games. So everyone knows who Kiryu is. Everyone, is super respective of him, or they know who, what he's done in the past. Where Yagami is not that. He's not a nobody, but he's more of just like a regular guy. And based on his occupation as a detective, he has a stake in like the ongoing events of both Judgment and Lost Judgment, especially like a personal stake with the cases that he's going through. But it's like of a different flavor than Kiryu, where Kiryu usually has a familiar tie or something to do with Haruka or his allegiance to the Tojo clan, where Yagami is a little bit further removed. So just the style of storytelling is a bit different. It's a bit less boisterous. It's a bit slower, but not in a bad way. I remember, this is not a spoiler, near the end of Judgment, there is a set piece that involves a collapsing sky bridge between buildings. And that's kind of like the high point of the action of that story, but it's still like super dramatic, which I think is a sign of good storytelling when a story can crescendo to make something like that seem like, oh shit, stuff is going down. Where oftentimes in the Yakuza series, especially like by the time you get to Yakuza 6, the stuff that they have to pull to kind of keep one-upping themselves ends up feeling like less and less kind of based in reality. There's a lot more contrivance. Even in Yakuza 7, like there's stuff with, I don't want to say any specific story beats, but in a lot of Yakuza games, there's usually some sort of contrivance, whether it's like Mirror Man in Yakuza 7 or specific types of bullets in Yakuza 4 and things like that. Different coin lockers in Yakuza 7 as well. And an unnamed brother in Yakuza 3 makes a lot of the drama there, where Judgment doesn't rely on stuff like that nearly as much. It's still loud and wacky, but it's a little bit more straight-laced, which I think is actually it gives it its own flavor, its own identity. And the one thing that I wasn't expecting from Judgment is Yakuza, in the Yakuza games and the Like a Dragon games, Kiryu does ally with other people. There's the detective Date, the / police investigator. Obviously, he teams up with Majima in short bursts and things like that. But usually it's a solo story with... and there's Akiyama in the later games and things like that. But what I was surprised in Judgment is that by like the later half of Yagami's initial debut game, he's already got like almost like a RPG party of cohorts of like, there's obviously Kaito, who's like the deuterologist, or I don't know, the second protagonist in the game. Obviously, he gets his own DLC in Lost Judgment. There's Hoshino, who is like the rookie lawyer. There's Suguya, who is like an ex-thief. And by the end of Judgment, like Yagami is bouncing off ideas and interacting with all of these characters with different perspectives. And it kind of endeared me to the narrative in a way that almost Like a Dragon did. But Like a Dragon had the kind of like the baked in fact that you have an RPG party of 7 characters. Well, I guess 6, because you can't really count Eri because she kind of is hidden from the story. But Judgment isn't an RPG, not explicitly. It's just a solo game where you only play as Yagami, but he bounces off so many other different people who have a stake in the story, and have different interactions in the narrative. The thief character, Suguya, I hope I'm getting that name right. Throughout the game, he keeps asking Yagami about what happened with a case 4 years ago, about what his thoughts are on it, how it affected him. And it's not 100% clear why he's fixated on this. And then until it's revealed later in the game exactly like what the narrative behind that was. So basically, if you've played Yakuza games on PC or as they've been re-released in whatever fashion, and you're not sure, like, Judgment I like Kiryu a lot, I don't know if Yagami's that endearing or things like that. I don't know. I was just really surprised by how I appreciated the different narrative tact of these two Judgment games. I haven't finished Lost Judgment yet, but it has a lot of the same vibe. A lot of the major players in Judgment carry straight over into Lost Judgment. Tsukumo, like the hacker kind of bro, kind of plays a more major role earlier in Lost Judgment. I will say that Lost Judgment takes place, it has a lot of focus on the school setting, and like there's a whole subsection of side stories based on like school clubs, like the dance club and the photography club and things like that, which I felt like maybe are a little bit silly. That wasn't what I was expecting out of an RGG Studios game, but it still works just fine in a way.
I think it definitely, like, I've seen a lot of people when Lost Judgment came out originally say like they just said I have to keep on going with the main narrative and I'll do the side stuff like another playthrough, because like they might have felt like the side stuff took away from it, or like the main story was like too gripping on them to like stop at that point. Like it never lets go once it starts sinking its teeth in. How are the PC ports shaping up for these games?
So yeah, I'm not going to pretend to be Digital Foundry, but these two games are on the Dragon engine, and that's also, Kiwami 2 and Yakuza 6 and 7 are all on that engine. So it's kind of like a known thing. I will say that even on a pretty powerful PC, when I play this game at 4K, the city streets are kind of dense enough that I wasn't able to get like a consistent frame rate that I wanted. One thing that is new to these releases is that they do support AMD's FSR, like reconstruction technology, their equivalent to DLSS. I guess some people were hoping for FSR 2.1. It only has 2.0. I don't know enough about those technologies to specifically outline the difference. But I will say that I enabled FSR 2.0. I set it to like quality mode with like the base level sharpness, and was able to basically boost my frame rate to a place that I enjoyed what I saw. And I tried to take a few comparison shots, and I thought the dip in quality was worth getting a pretty large boost in frame rate once I enabled FSR. So that's something that the other Dragon Engine games didn't have. I think for those games, what I relied on was the resolution scale. I think I dipped it down to like 90% or something in order to boost my frame rate, because James talked about how the Dragon Engine kind of is pretty taxing on even pretty powerful PCs. But FSR I thought was a nice addition. There are a few little graphical artifacts, like with lighting and with distant like edges, but not enough to really distract. So they're good ports. It's kind of on par with the other games in the series.
It's worth noting, and kind of I guess something we might be able to talk about later, but Sega is all in with Steam Deck because day one both of these ports were Steam Deck verified.
That's neat.
So yeah, like that's nice.
And FSR would probably be a really nice thing to have there to get the higher frame rate on the limited hardware.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I enjoyed Judgment more than I expected to. I think I've enjoyed it more than where I'm at Lost Judgment so far. But, with these narratives, usually they get a lot more gripping as you get past the halfway mark. So I don't want to put a verdict on Lost Judgment quite yet, because I'm only about halfway through. But Judgment is really good, even if you're kind of burnt out on Yakuza games because you've been playing them so rapidly as they've been re-released. I thought Judgment was kind of a breath of fresh air, and it was something that you shouldn't skip just because you're not sure about it being a different protagonist or feeling too samey or too different. But yeah, RGG Studios, I was not expecting to have 4 pretty major headlines from them for this week. We knew that the summit was coming, but I think Ishin took everyone by surprise. The side story about Kiryu taking place between 6 and 7 was completely unexpected. And then even like a Dragon 8, even though we kind of expected it, we didn't know what we would see. We did not know that we would see Yu Narukami cosplay Kiryu.
Oh man, yeah. It softens the blow, like I said, like it's hard to for me to get super excited for like a Dragon 8 yet, because it's still super far off. But having Ishin and like a Dragon Gaiden fill in the blanks for next year, it helps soften the blow. Like it's I don't have to I won't hear I'll still be engaging with the RGG series on the way there.
All right, so that covers for all the RGG studio news, even though we're not going to be waiting that long for Ishin because it's February of next year. There were only a couple other things from the Sony State of Play that were really in our purview. One of these is one that we teased early on in this podcast, over 2 hours ago, is that we got a new title being published by Sony and developed by Team Ninja. This one is called Rise of the Ronin, which takes place in 19th century Japan. So again, this is kind of what we were teasing. We were talking about how Ghost of Tsushima now has kind of given some assurance to developers that they can set games. This is an action RPG in this kind of time period, in this setting, and release them for a global audience. So for Rise of the Ronin, we got a pretty beefy announcement trailer for it. This is a bit off. It is to be announced for 2024. The director of the game, Fumihiko Yasuda, is also working on Wolong Fallen Dynasty. So he's got, 2 action RPGs, in the works that both look really
stop
promising.
Making fire, dude.
Yeah, I feel like I keep saying this, but like Koei Tecmo and their developers really are just like popping off, like almost quietly, because like obviously everyone's talking about how many games like Square Enix is releasing at the end of this year, next year, which makes sense, but like, and we hear about how Capcom is back in it and all that, but like Koei Tecmo, you look at what they've actually released in the last like several years, and it's like, man, they don't get enough credit.
At the end of this trailer, we did learn that Rise of the Ronin is a PS5 console exclusive, which suggests a PC release at some place, but nothing is confirmed there on that front at all. But we've seen that language used before in Sony announcements.
Plus, Sony themselves have been releasing PC ports lately, so it's like it's not announced. So obviously, a grain of salt, but it's only a matter of time.
And like I was on the Steam front page just earlier this last week, and it's like Sony publisher sale on Steam. I'm like, oh, that's different, but I guess it's the world we live in now. So.
I mean, it's neat. But I think it's like I'm very like impressed with like the footage they've shown for Rise of the Ronin as a 2024 title. This looks pretty polished. Like this looks like some of the scenes look like in engine already, and like to be in some playable prototype state, and looks pretty damn good already from the get go. I'm curious to see like what sorts of systems they have. This looks to be a lot more open than like what you'd see at like Neo or Wolong. So like it might be a more open world take on it.
Yeah,
It
definitely
looks really interesting.
Yeah, it definitely looks like more of an open world. A buddy of mine described it as saying like Ubisoft announced a Japanese Assassin's Creed, and then it felt like Koei Tecmo immediately came by and did a Mortal Kombat fatality on them.
So that's not wrong. Not wrong.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things of the gameplay here that I think I just want to call out. Like there's the part that makes it look more open world is that the main character like gets like a glider that looks like wings of a hawk, and he's like soaring over a coastline. He like stabs someone with the end of a bayonet. He lights his his saber on fire. So there's lots of cool little gameplay mechanics shown. And then of course there's a mix of cinematics as well. I'm kind of giving an inkling for what the storyline premise might be. It does say it was all captured on PS5, so maybe it's pretty far along in development, but they've got some high ambitions, so not trying to pigeonhole themselves into a next year release. So we'll see this in 2024. Yeah. Oh, and there's also some footage of him like on horseback that was almost like evocative of like Elden Ring. So yeah, Rise of the Ronin from Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja being published by Sony for PS5. And the last thing that we have listed here from the State of Play is a game that we previously talked about from a PlayStation showcase at least a year back when it was known as Project Eve. This is a Korean-developed game that seems to take a lot of inspiration from Nier Automata, and now we have a new title for this game. It is known as Stellar Blade. It'll be releasing for PS5. I believe they also say PS5 console exclusive here as well. And we got a story trailer for the game at the most recent State of Play last week. So most of this
did just yesterday get some potentially worrying like information about the development, but I don't know.
Well, what'd you hear?
There is someone stepping up to say that multiple women were fired from the project for being openly feminist.
That's that's weird. That's not good. Well, hopefully,
we'll follow up
we'll
on
see
that if it gets more
Yeah.
significant in terms of like outcry from that, if it ends up being something that the studio addresses in a direct manner or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully they look into that, investigate that thoroughly, and see like whether the claims are true. I mean, I'm if they're making that, like I'm offered to, like, I'm inclined to believe that, like,
I
Mhm.
mean,
they wouldn't say it out of nowhere. So
yeah,
it's
and
definitely
it's like demographically, like right now in South Korea, it's like one of those things where a lot of men are like anti-feminists. So it would unfortunately, it would make sense.
yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how that develops. We'll definitely update people on that if that continues on. What we know so far from this game, as you said, Brian, the developer Shift Up is on it. We've seen it in prior indie showcases, including prior State of Plays. I know that there are some composers from Monaca working on this game, so like it's sounding like Nier Automata isn't totally unfounded, because some of Okabe's studio is working on the sound design for this game. It looks slick, as an action RPG, and very
Well,
much like it's
by the
like
way,
their
the
own.
Nier Automata comparisons are all fan attributed. I don't think the developer has come out and said that, but back when we had the Project Eve trailer earlier in the last year, people said like, "Oh, this looks like the abandoned city in Nier Automata." And then there's like
Yeah.
instead of the pod, there's, I forget what the name of the little ally bot is in this game, but it has one of those as well.
Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, hopefully, we'll
And
see what happens with the
it does
development of the
say
game.
is PS5 console exclusive, so similar standing as Rise of the Ronin. So, but this one is to be announced release date for next year.
There are quite a few people looking forward to this as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, so obviously Square Enix had a fairly big presence at the Nintendo Direct specifically, but we also, throughout as we transitioned out of the Nintendo Direct and the State of Play and more into the back half of the week into TGS, we got a bit more Square Enix news from all fronts, and we kind of talked about this when we were previewing TGS a couple of weeks ago on this podcast. Here's one that I don't know if we were expecting. I forget if this showed up on any of their like planned release schedules, but we did learn about a game that was announced a while back, and that is Infinity Strash Dragon Quest: The Adventure of Dai. So this is a game that I remember being excited for back in like early 2020 when it was first announced, and then it kind of went quiet for a long while. But now we've learned that The Adventure of Dai will be releasing on PlayStation consoles, Switch, and PC with a simultaneously global launch, which was something that we weren't sure of.
Let's
we
go!
We thought it might stay in Japan. And then alongside we got it. Alongside we got a new trailer for it. From Square Enix, a 2-minute story trailer. They call it an announcement trailer, even though this game was announced, so that's kind of interesting. Yeah. But it shows some of the gameplay where you can control characters like Dai, Pop Mom, and I remember saying like on Twitter, like maybe I should watch the anime because I know that Shueisha, I believe, Shueisha has been like featuring this anime for like the last year and a half, and now Josh was like, "Oh, okay, that's got about 100 episodes. If you're going to commit to that," I'm like, "Oh,
yeah."
Maybe
I mean,
not.
it's still airing, and like people say it's probably going to end at like the 100th episode. I stopped watching around episode 70ish. I need to continue watching it, but I really liked what I've seen of it, so I'm very excited for this game.
I ask you, Josh, did you research the anime for this game, or did you just watch it out of the blue?
I watched it out of the blue. I watched it before this thing was like announced. I was like it's one of those IPs that I knew from the manga, but I never really got into it. I didn't want to like watch the old anime adaptation because I heard like it like kind of ends abruptly and like has weird like deviations from like the manga story, while this new anime adaptation is more faithful to it. So I just kind of like, I was like, okay, it's like sure, and then like I didn't know it was gonna be like super long, but like I really enjoy it because it's very much like every classic JRPG trope you can think of in an anime. It's like it's like playing through a JRPG but watching it, pretty much. It's awesome.
So I looked at I went back
up.
to the original announcement for this, and it's like Square Enix has announced Infinity Strash Dragon Quest Adventure of Dai for unspecified consoles in 2021. It's
Yep.
like, oh. So we do know the console's now, and along with PC, we still don't have a release window, but they just specified that it's going to be a simultaneous global launch.
They might show off a release date later tonight after this podcast recording, because they do have a program for this game and all the other Dai games at 8:45 p.m. Pacific later tonight. So we might get a release date there. Because they like to leave the staggered release info shit throughout this whole week. So,
one thing that's been difficult is even putting this podcast together is trying to collate all the different each of these games gets 2 or 3 different showings based on where they initially show up, and then getting followed up on a special presentation at TGS. Trying to make sure that's all bundled together. So by the time you listen to this, we might have a release window for Infinity Strash, but as of right now, we don't.
Yeah, right. So but like the gameplay that we've seen, like in the new trailer, it looks like way more refined than we've seen previously. It's still, I still cannot shake the feeling that like the Trials of Mana remake, or not Mana, was it? Trials of Mana remake team is like on this, because it looks like that, but I'm not 100% sure.
Well, I remember when this was first shown, people were like, "Oh, the combat looks like a mobile game," but currently, right now, not announced for mobile. It's consoles and PC.
So, yeah, this is cool. I'm digging it. I really wonder like what the scope of the game is, because there are some events like in that trailer, like very very briefly shown, that don't happen until much later in the series. So I'm interested in the scope of this game, how far they get into that story, if they try to do the whole story. Because if they try to do the whole story, that's gonna be one big ass game.
So another upcoming release that is not too far away is the upcoming Valkyrie Elysium. And this game we've had a few different opportunities to talk about on the podcast. Previously, it is coming out in late September, so not in too long, but we did learn that they released a demo for it, for consoles anyway, in this last week. And I'm just going to hand it off over to Josh, who was able to go early access with this demo, just to provide some feedback about how what he thought about what was offered for Valkyrie Elysium, and if he's excited for the release in a couple weeks. So obviously, Square Enix just took the opportunity to market this game as an upcoming release for them just in the next couple of weeks. So Josh, you were able to go on board with the demo before it was announced, and just what were your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I was surprised, actually. I came out pretty positive on it by the end, because you know me, when this was like initially announced, I was pretty vocal about like, I don't really know how I feel about this game. Like the first reveal trailer for this game wasn't really doing it for me.
We poo-pooed on it quite a bit here on the podcast.
I didn't know what to expect from the combat. I was like, this looks like Dragon Guard 3? I don't know. So, and then I came away from it. I was like, I played it on PS5. It has your standard, like, it's an action RPG. You're light and heavy attacks. You can do like combo strings into it. What really elevated the combat for me was like you have this soul chain grappling hook where you can like use it to like navigate through environments at like certain spots to like hook into like other platforms, and you can also use it like in battles to like push yourself fast like toward enemies. So like it makes navigating around them faster. Then you combine that with like summoning Einherjar, which like and the Valkyrie Profile series, they're like the spirits of like undead, the spirits of dead heroes, like join the Valkyrie in her fights as she recruits them. So like in Elysium, you summon Einherjar. They're kind of like your party members that are only there for a limited amount of time, but you don't have to babysit them like with like, they don't have like health bars or anything, so you don't have to really pay attention to them that much. And then they all have an associated element. So like when you summon an Einherjar with like a certain element, your attacks become that element. So there's this whole like elemental weakness system that you can take advantage of against enemies to like temporarily stun them. And also you have like your divine arts magic spells that'll get enhanced when Einherjar are on the field, and Einherjar can be used for like certain environmental puzzles along the way. So the demo is pretty limited to like the tutorial, the first chapter of the game, and like the 2 side quests you get from the first chapter, and then you get a little bit of a glimpse of like how the equipment system works in the game, how the skill trees work in the game, and overall like it was fine. Like honestly, like I wasn't really going in with high expectations, but I think they did a decent job like translating the Valkyrie formula. It's not good. It's not the Valkyrie profile battle system. People shouldn't be expecting the Valkyrie profile battle system out of this game off the gate. Like it's its own thing. It's not related to the Valkyrie profile series aside from like sharing terms from that series. But as like translating that formula into an action RPG format, it's pretty good. It's pretty awesome. And like the first like chapter's boss like reminded me like of a boss battle out of East, and I was like, that's a weird thing to say about this game. But it feels rewarding, and it also helps that like the PS5 DualSense makes use of its like haptic triggers and like and it's like it's rumble to kind of make you feel good as you're doing actions in this game too. So for anyone who's like curious about this game, the demo's now up on PS5 and PS4. Give it a shot. Like it sounds. I mean, it for me, I'm just so glad that like my initial worries about the game like so far have been like kind of like okay, like I feel way better about this game than like what the initial trailer led me to believe. So
Yeah, the
I'm
fact that we
especially
went from
happy
our
with it.
initial impressions to, hey, this feels kind of like Yeast is a pretty big step up. Now, I know Yeast games aren't always perfect, but the fact that we could even make the comparison now is like, yeah, this is looking kind of promising compared to our initial impressions.
Yeah, and for the TGS presentation for Valkyrie Elysium, they did share a little bit of new info coming to the game, like a future update coming in early November. For the game, they're gonna add like a Hild's Vengeance mode, which allows you to play as the Dark Valkyrie that's been shown in the trailers. So that's gonna be like its own separate.
Yeah, we know
mode.
her name now.
Yep.
We still don't know the regular Valkyrie's name.
Yep. And then they also revealed that Yui Shikata is going to be her Japanese voice, and a lot of people will know her as 2B from Nier Automata. They also are gonna add the Seraphic Gate, which are like time challenges to Valkyrie Elysium. They're historically like an optional super dungeon in the series. So, and then they also have more difficulty modes, harder difficulty modes coming to Valkyrie Elysium, and all these updates coming to PS5 and PS4 will launch with the PC release coming on November 11th. So it's one of those few games that's releasing on consoles first, and then the PC release is like kind of like way later.
Yeah, like I actually had to be reminded of this. I think we might have talked about it on the podcast, but it slipped my mind. Yeah, so it's releasing on September 29th for PlayStation consoles, but then PC back in November, but with the added content. Another upcoming game that's another December release that we've talked about in a few different contexts on this podcast is Dragon Quest Treasures. So we've talked about a few different little newsletters that they put out, like for how the treasure gathering works and how the monster recruitment works and things like that. Obviously, Square Enix took the opportunity to market the game back at TGS, so we got a new TGS trailer for it. But more interestingly, this was another game that James was able to go hands-on with his Square Enix event in the last week. So, James, we'll just hand it off to you again. Like, instead of just talking about, we've had a few opportunities to talk about Dragon Quest Treasures, like in the marketing sense, just even with your hands-on time with the game, how did you feel about it?
Feels very good. Unfortunately, it was one of those demos where it's the opening hours, so by the time it really started getting going, the demo was over. I always kind of hate when demos are like that, which I can understand why, because especially for RPGs, you kind of it's hard to showcase those. It's hard to showcase
Yeah, hard to do
those.
vertical slices on long-running games.
What I will say is that it's a Dragon Quest spinoff. It's very charming. It seems to run well on Switch. I played it docked, and despite the motion smoothing on the TVs, it's definitely running at 60 FPS. And
Nice.
there's a lot to say about it. I do like how you get like a little slingshot. The game calls it a catapult. It's a slingshot, and you get like that's like half of the combat from like Eric and Mia's perspective. Is that you get access to the slingshot, and then you get different sorts of pebbles and pellets that you can use, like a regular just stone that's just like standard. You get some that are elemental based. Like I got one that was like a fizzle pellet, which was stronger, and then you can even get like heal pellets, which you can, because the way it works is you can aim manually, but you can also use like the L and R buttons while you're holding down VR to like toggle between your enemies and allies, and you can shoot the heal pellets at your monster companions to heal
That's
them.
cute.
And
I like that.
it's like it's not super in depth combat. Like you can kind of like order them to charge, and you can go like dive right in with your like dagger and do a little hit string, but it's like it's engaging enough combat, and it's definitely not bad. everything else surrounding the game is very promising. I like how like part of the gameplay loop is find these monsters, getting little hints of where the treasure might be by like a vision, and then it's like kind of like the whole like loop is okay, where is that location and how do I get to it? And then you like get the treasure, and it's again, it was just the very beginning. So obviously, or at least I'm hoping that later on there's more in depth for how you find treasure, like exploration, all that sort of thing. But it's promising, and I'm very excited to see what the rest of the game is like.
Yeah,
One thing I am not sure if it's been in the marketing, but there does appear to be a hub that you can return to, which is very cool. That is not embargoed, but it's like one of those things where it's like right as it was ending, it's like, hey, here's an area that's very clearly going to be the hub that you can return to.
I think they've
hang
teased
out.
it like in the marketing, like they say, hey, you can like bring your haul back from the other islands to like a certain central place, but I don't think they've actually ever shown like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
central place.
I will
So
say that I do like the main conceit of like, okay, why is this a game about treasure hunting? Why is there treasure everywhere? It's because Eric and Mia literally got like sucked into a portal, and they found themselves in the world of Draconia, which is literally just the calcified skeletons of like two giant golden dragons, and that's why there's a bunch of treasure there, because you're literally standing on top of where they stashed all of their treasures.
because they found themselves in Xenoblade 1.
I
But
get it.
yeah, I feel like if out of all of the games I demoed here, well, demoed at the Square Enix thing, I think Dragon Quest Treasures is the one that I'm like most eager to get my hands back on. It's like Dragon Quest spin-offs are always at least good, and I'm excited to see what the full game's like.
And we'll just kind of keep it on this front. Another upcoming game that's actually releasing much sooner than Dragon Quest Treasures is Star Ocean: The Divine Force. Unlike Dragon Quest Treasures, over the last couple of weeks, we've been able to watch different new trailers for this game, which is releasing in late October, as they've revealed the different gameplay systems and the new characters. Now, I kind of thought maybe this was a bad assumption on my part, but I kind of thought that that we had all the playable characters announced in this game because we had the initial 6 plus the Malkia. However, with the new TGS trailer, they announced at least 2 more characters, and one of them is a blue-haired woman named Marielle L. Kenny, which is a last name that fans of the series should recognize. I guess she is an officer on the ship that shoots down Raymond's ship near the beginning of the game, and we get a basic introduction to her and show a little bit of her gameplay in combat. And then also there is a new party member shown in the battle footage that isn't explicitly detailed, that just has the name JJ, who looks kind of like an armored, like cybernetic character. There's also we got the box art, at least like the another major key art for the game, that shows a red-haired character that we don't know many details of. But basically, there are at least 2, potentially 3 new playable characters shown in this footage. And this trailer is like 5 minutes long, so it's kind of actually 6 minutes long. So it kind of goes into quite a lot of combat examples, some introduction to the new characters. It's quite a lot here. And then also, I don't have a lot of attachment to this, but I think Josh and Chow might have. They debuted the title's theme song, Pandora, being performed by Hyde in this
Let's
trailer.
go.
So I don't know like what they are known for, but I guess that was a big enough announcement to kind of pair with this trailer to market the game before its October release.
Hyde is just a very famous like musician in Japan. Also known for his work as leading the band The Arc&Ciel, which a lot of people are very fond of. And,
The Ready Steady Go opening, guys. Anyone remember that?
Yep.
Wait, which opening?
The
The
Full Metal
old,
Alchemist, the original one.
the original one.
Brotherhood.
The first opening of the first anime.
I think it's the second opening.
I think it's the second opening is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the opening that was used in the English, like with in the English broadcast. They use the second opening for like all of it. So, but most English people will recognize that as the opening to the old Fullmetal Alchemist anime. Anyway, yeah, like they basically showed off the other playable characters in the game. The big news for people, and bless Square Enix for doing this. There's going to be a demo for Star Ocean: The Divine Force coming on September 20th for the PlayStation 5, PlayStation 4, Xbox Series, and Xbox One releases. There's going to be no demo for the PC version. Unfortunately, only Landcars with the Dio Field Chronicle was brave enough to do it. Um, but that's just a few days. I'm really excited to get hands on with the game and see how I feel about it. But we do have a person here who did get hands on with Star Ocean: The Divine Force.
Yep.
James.
So that was yet another game I got to play at that Square Enix press event. I spent about an hour playing it. It was so a decent chunk of time, and I got to have a feel for the gameplay. I will say one thing that maybe did not work in this game's favor is that we were playing it through an OBS capture window. Which means that one of the mechanics in the game is you have the Duma, which lets you float and kind of like shoot yourself at enemies that you're locked onto. And there's a mechanic where if you flick the analog stick to the side right before you like hit the enemy, you can dodge out of the way, and it'll be like they'll be like kind of surprised and stunned, and it'll be something called a blind side, and it'll increase the amount of damage that they'll take for a period of time. And it was very hard for me to execute it
because of the input delay in the window.
Yeah, because of the input delay. So I'm assuming that's part of it. I'll see how the demo itself holds up, if it's a bit better on my home system without the input delay. But that was definitely one of the issues I had with input lag and whatnot. And
what version of the game were they demoing?
PlayStation 5.
Okay.
I'll just say this right now. The Square Enix event, the only platforms they had available for us to test for any of the games was PlayStation 5 and Nintendo Switch. They did not have PC. They did not have Xbox. It was just PlayStation 5 and Switch.
We tried the new demo or the public demo on the Xbox Series?
I'm gonna try it on the Xbox, yeah.
Okay.
Just to see. I'll probably boot it up on PlayStation as well. I don't think actually it's going to be the same build that I played at Square Enix, because it seemed to be the full game. But
yeah, they mentioned that the demo will be the start of Raymond's story, and it'll be roughly 2 hours long.
Okay, then it might actually it'll have the same content that I played. It sounds like, but yeah.
I'm very interested to see, like, for people who are playing this on last generation consoles, how this will run on PS4 and especially Xbox One.
I do not anticipate it to run well, because even though, again, it was through an OBS capture window, I will say this: I played through Crisis Core on PS5 through the same setup, and the frame pacing and the frame rate was rock solid there, like no frame pacing issues whatsoever. Star Ocean definitely had some technical issues. Like, it had some frame drops. It had a lot of stuttering in some areas.
Oh, interesting. Wow.
So it's like, again, it's an in development build. Well,
Yeah.
I don't know how old that build is.
Yeah, even with this upcoming demo, we don't know how old this demo build will be.
There was also one thing I noted in my preview article, that I came across some textures that were very muddy. Like, and it's like, I know it's a more budget release, but it's like, even like when you go up to a rock on a PlayStation 5 game, and it's like, this looks like it would not be out of place on a Wii or early PS3 title. It's like,
that's a Tri-Ace classic right there.
Yeah.
Just some weird ass, like, what is that?
I don't want to be a snob. It's just like one of those things where, like, it happened often enough where it's like,
You'd see, you notice it, you're going to report on it. You're not going to ignore it.
Yeah, yeah.
And you're not going there to, like, with the sole intention of, like, bashing the game. It's like, oh, okay, I just saw this.
Yeah, but yeah, overall, I had a decent time with it. We did get some comments where it's like, why didn't you talk about the fact that combat has like this AP system where you, like, once you finish a chain, you're basically sitting on your ass. Well, first off, that's part of the reason you have Duma, is that you can just like use it to run around, like make openings and then do a dash attack. Because while you're doing that, your AP is recharging, and you can get to a point where your AP is like very vastly like upgraded and whatnot. It's like, it's one of those things where
it's early RPG things.
Yeah, it's a quirky RPG thing, and I'm sure, like, in context of the full game, it's not going to be nearly as much of an issue. It's just like one of those things where it's like, I wasn't expecting it, so there was definitely a few instances where I ran out of AP, and it was kind of awkward. But it's one of those things where it's like, you get used to it. It's
cool. There's another one last game you were able to try out the Square Enix event. We don't have a particular related news piece on it, so just share with us the last game you were able to play at the Square Enix preview event.
So I did not expect Nier Automata to be a good Switch port. because like we had it announced like Nier Automata, the end of Yorha edition, is coming to Switch. We've known that for several months now. I played it because after I'd finished up with Crisis Core and Dragon Quest Treasures and Star Ocean, I still had like an hour and a half of my time allotted, and the only other stuff they had available to play was Harvestella and Field Chronicles, both of which were based off the public demo. So I was like, well, I can't really get much from this. I can't just get it home. So I figured, well, let's see how Nier Automata is playable on Switch. So it's a much better conversion than honestly it has any right to be. Like obviously, if you look closely at it, you'll notice the differences in the graphical fidelity, but resolution wise and like overall like fidelity, it's not that far off from the base PS4 version. And when you're playing it, sure, the frame rate isn't as good. It's still like a really solid experience.
I think people just like want it like just at least like play well and like make it feel good. So it seems like that's what you got away from it. Is like, hey, you're not really sacrificing too much if you want to play this on the go with a
Yeah,
Switch.
yeah. It's definitely one of those things where you can tell that a lot of effort was put into the port, and it's like I said it even in the tweet. It's like it's probably the most impressive Switch conversion I've seen because it retains so much of the PS4 original, and it's not like Alien Isolation, which was the previous like poster child for a really impressive Switch conversion, or even Witcher 3. It's like Witcher 3, very obviously a lot of concessions. The resolution's very low, the frame rate's very low, the graphical fidelity is very muddy. But you look at Nier Automata, and it's like, yes, the frame rate isn't as good, but the resolution's still very respectable, and the overall fidelity, it's like you can see parts where it's obvious it had to be downgraded, but unless you're specifically looking at them side by side and looking for those changes, it does not stand out. It's a very solid, very competent version of the game. And while he's not on the podcast with us this week, I did have a small conversation with our boss, Alexander Donaldson, on Twitter earlier, because he also was at a similar event in London to play some games, and he shared my thoughts on Nier Automata's Switch version being a very impressive showing. So
Nice,
so
nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
like if you only have a Switch and you want to play Nier Automata, which was I believe it was our RPG of the year 2017, I believe so.
It was.
Uh,
It
yeah,
was, yeah.
yeah, definitely. Like feel like you can feel confident that you are not getting a bad version of that game. If you want to play Nier and you only have a Switch, you can safely look forward to it.
Yeah, that's really valuable, and thank you so much for giving that a look. Because I think a lot of people, like might be like, not this like it feels like under the radar in a sense because like people don't never know what to expect out of like Switch conversions because there's been like a fair share of good ones and a fair share of bad ones, so it's always difficult to like get a gauge of like which is going to be the good and which is going to be the bad one. So it's always valuable to hear to like, okay, there's have been real hands-on impressions. I can feel confident that like what I'm getting is of decent quality.
And I think that covers us for most or of all of the Square Enix based Tokyo Game Show announcements, but we did have a lot of announcements from other publishers throughout the event, of course. Now, this next one is one that we could have easily led off this podcast with, easily, but we brought it back down here, approaching our third hour, because just we're going mostly chronologically, and this was a bit of a later announcement. So Konami had a presence at TGS, and we did know ahead of time that they were planning to unveil something for a long-running fan favorite series. Some people thought, I think, Silent Hill or some things. Without bearing the lead, they announced a new project in the Suikoden series, Suikoden 1 and 2 HD Remaster, coming to all consoles. Well, I guess last-gen consoles, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Nintendo Switch, and PC next year. We got a lot of footage from both the remaster of the first and second game, and this seems to have been something that a lot of people have been clamoring for. Of course, we've talked a lot about Suikoden in a kind of a tangential way ever since the announcement of Eiyuden Chronicle a couple years back, which is supposed to be a spiritual successor to this. But it sounds like now, instead of just having Suikoden at home, we also have Suikoden HD Remaster officially from Konami next year in a kind of an HD 2D style engine. And this seems really exciting. And I know that some people here, Adam and Josh, and maybe James, I'm not sure, have really fond memories of this series. Adam said as he was listening to some of the soundtrack that he was tearing up. Hopefully I didn't betray too much by sharing that. But you feel very strongly about this series, Adam. And when you saw this announcement trailer for the 1 and 2 remaster, what was your feedback?
Well, we actually already knew this was coming, or we had heavy hints that this was coming. It was a secret. So it was, we were kind of when we watched the trailer, we were watching the stream. They originally announced Suikoden 1 remaster, and we were like, oh, that's weird. I thought we heard it was going to be both of them. I guess it's only the first one, because they were kind of being sly, and they didn't actually announce that it was both games until like the end of the stream event, which is kind of funny. Because Suikoden 2 Suikoden 1 is great too, but Suikoden 2 is like the favorite. So it's kind of
the golden child of the series,
right? Yeah. And so looking at like some people were wondering if this was just going to be like an up-res of like the PSP version, which never released in the West or things like that. And maybe that was the base, but that doesn't seem to be the case. They showed, there's new art for the characters. Like it's a pixel-based game, but their character like portrait art has been redrawn.
Junko Kwano is back on involved this Suikoden 1 HD remaster.
Yeah, and like it's actually like a redrawn like portrait of that character art. It's not like Grandia remaster where they just kind of like artificially enhanced it. Mm-hmm. They've literally redrawn to the point that like even sometimes the character is just facing the other direction entirely, like their portrait art. So the portrait art is new. It looks good because it is redrawn. The backgrounds are maybe a little bit more mixed on the backgrounds. I know some, like Cullen was saying, this looks like RPG Maker. Now, there is some footage out there that shows that you might be able to go back to the original backgrounds. I don't think that's been announced, though. I guess a version of this game has leaked, so that's not, like, finished. So, like, anything that people are finding in that leak, it's, no confirmation if that's actually going to be in the final product or not, because, it's in development at the moment. But the backgrounds are new. I'm kind of mixed on if they look better or not. Some of them, like, there's, like, the scene where Joey and Ryu are jumping off the waterfall. They added, like, a moon in the sky there, which is, to be honest, a little corny, but, I think it looks nice.
Like, the camp that Joey, like, goes around in at the beginning of Suikoden 2, that one looks better.
Yeah, and then there's the famous waiting for Joey scene they have a screenshot for. That looks really nice.
Gonna cry.
Yeah, that scene makes you cry. And the character the pixels themselves, like the character, pixel art looks pretty much intact, like no smoothing filter.
Yeah, thank God. It's very crisp. Yeah.
And Suikoden has like great pixel animation. There's like so many different sprite animations that are throughout the game. Someone was actually sharing them in another channel, like all the different animations, like at your camp. There's like a fishing animation, a cooking animation, lots of mini game animations, all with your characters, and also in battle, of course, as well. So it's one of the best pixel like art styles, I think.
A very small detail that only like us will like get excited for, but like. Not in the Suikoden 1 HD remaster, but for the Suikoden 2 HD remaster, they added diagonal movement in that game. So it's like a small thing, but like you remember like the Final Fantasy Pixel remasters, like they kind of made a big deal of that.
The thing is with the diagonal movement is there's actually like a new like pixel frame for that,
pixel frame.
Like where they're facing diagonal. And it's literally like, what the fuck? I didn't know they could look like that. Because you're used to the character either looking just up, down, left, or right. Like they can look diagonal. Like they don't even do that in the Final Fantasy Pixel remaster. I think they just kind of
they just like slide diagonal. Yeah. There's
so
also
this
like
game. Go ahead.
I was going to say like there might be there's evidence of a localization pass on it. Not exactly entirely retranslated, but like the original localizations of Suikoden 1 and 2 were pretty rough. Back in like that era of time where like the localization process was still pretty primitive to where it is now. So there's been like a lot of screenshots going around comparing like the scripts, and there's used to be at the very least an editing pass through it. IGN shared a Necklord boss battle gameplay, and like they use like different terminology in it. So instead of like the Star Dragon sword in the original, it's now the Celestial sword, for example. Which it just sounds better, less stiff. for some of the terminology in that.
There's only one line that made me raise an eyebrow. When Nanami first, runs into Ryu again after he goes off to war, after, they think he's dead, she says in the new translation, like, "How are you?" Like, oh, that's
yeah, that's a little bit weird.
That's actually a fun scene because she like tackles him and like strangles him on the ground, like out of love. But in the original game, I think her dialogue is like, "Are you okay?"
Like
after she's like strangling him. But in this game, he's like, "How are you?" It's very quick in the trailer. Like, that's kind of weird, but maybe it'll make better sense in context.
I felt like that part it got cut off from the trailer, so we.
Yeah, it was very quick in the trailer, so it's hard to make a judgment on that. But
go on. I cut you off, Adam.
No, that's actually what I was going to bring up was the
the
editing pass of the translation. But coming out next year for basically all the major platforms, not like the PS5 gen, but
you can use the backwards compatibility stuff for them to play on those systems. So this is
the one thing is the battle UI apparently looks like the boilerplate like Unity UI. It looks like a mobile game.
Yeah, you see it in the
maybe that'll change.
boss footage.
Yeah, maybe it'll change before release. Even if it doesn't, I'm sure the PC version will get hundreds of mods, everyone tweaking it to their own liking. So that's like the one thing about the visuals. Like the background I'm half and half on, but the battle UI is just kind of like, this is pretty bad. I hope they fix it or change it.
Some of the new stuff is what you expect from HD remasters these days. They added autosave. There's a fast forward battles feature. You have the conversation log. You have like a new like full map screen, so like you see the full like map of like the zone that you're in. So typical stuff that you would expect from an HD remaster. That's all right, Konami. Rare Konami W right here.
Yeah, dub for Konami.
Yeah, but this was very, very awesome. I'm very glad that this is happening.
I'm someone who has not played these games, so it's finally nice. Yeah. Like whenever I see a Steam release, I'm like, oh, all right, I have no excuse now. So it's basically the same with Judgment.
This was the single biggest like announcement for like our social media. Like when you tweeted out the story, oh my god, everyone was like, holy shit. People were losing their minds.
I think they kind of benefited from the additional word of mouth in like the last 4 years because of Eiyuden Chronicle. More people have been just talking about, I love Suikoden growing up or things like that. And now it's like that nostalgia they could kind of play off here and say like, all right, we have this in our back pocket. What are we going to do with it?
Even if like the foundation of this like Ichi remaster was like, hey, Konami noticed that like the Eiyuden Chronicle Kickstarter made bank. And like did really well and like showed like there's a lot of interest for Suikoden. Even if that was like sure that's like what kind of spurred them to do this. Like I'd rather have this than not. Obviously, this is great. This is just good news all around.
IGN also interviewed some of the people currently at Konami. To be honest, I don't have their names in front of me, and they basically said, of course they're going to say this. They're interested in doing more Suikoden.
Yeah,
they're not going to say no, we don't want to, but if this remaster does like really well and like they see that there actually is an audience for games like this, maybe higher ups at Konami can be convinced that like, hey, we should like maybe have one of our dev teams that I don't even know who Konami's dev teams are anymore, but work on this. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't even know what a Suikoden 6 like dev team looks like, and it's not to say that it would be bad, right? Because think about Suikoden 5, considered one of the best in the series.
And it's the original creator had nothing to do with it, but it's still really good.
Yeah, that was a new development team for them. So and that was like fantastic. So and like and if this does really well, just aside from a new Suikoden, they can also bring over the PS2 Suikodens, bring them on over. I want to see Suikoden 5.
Suikoden 5 is
but Josh,
3 is also good in ways.
From 3.
Yeah, it's kind of funny is 3 is like the furthest in the timeline, and then 4 and 5 are like at earlier points in the timeline. So
I think 5 is the earliest, isn't it? I think it's like a prequel to all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
unlike other games that have like connected timelines, these are a little bit looser. Like the events of 5 really have no bearing, very very little on other than window dressing.
And some of the like especially the PS2 era Suikodens, like they definitely benefit with like a fast forward feature. Like
the fast forward that would especially help Suikoden 3 if that ever gets a remaster.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. So this is great news all around. I mean, Suikoden fans are feasting next year because it's not only Suikoden 1 and 2, it's also the Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes.
Yeah, so we got new footage from Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes the first time in a while back at Gamescom. And then at TGS, they had a special announcement program just for it alongside a new trailer. Now, the trailer shares a lot of same footage with the Gamescom trailer, but it's almost like a sequel trailer where it continues it further. And as someone who doesn't have the nostalgia for Suikoden, but really likes how Eiyuden Chronicle looks as kind of like a throwback Super Nintendo 16-bit era RPG, only in like a HD 2D style engine. I think it's got like this trailer is really the bomb. It's got good music, it's got good visuals. It's just a really good trailer, and I don't say that a lot for trailers. So
I think it might be my favorite trailer. Like if we're just talking trailers of the week, it might be my favorite. And I will say, just like seeing the actual like sprite animation now compared to what's in the Rising prequel, which is obviously a much more budget game, is like, thank God.
Yeah, this is
actual sprite animation. So
yeah, and then one of the major focuses
trailer is so good.
And one of the major focuses of Eiyuden Chronicle's presence at I keep saying Chronicles, Eiyuden Chronicle presence at TGS is that it did reach the stretch goal during its initial Kickstarter campaign for voice acting. So we got some Seiyu announcements for I think 3 of the major characters. So I don't have a lot of history or knowledge with the specific voice actors that they detailed, but basically that's one thing where this is different from the Suikoden series is that it does have a voice acting for these characters, despite having a kind of a similar looking art style. So they
didn't mention that the Suikoden remaster is not adding voice acting.
Mm-hmm. So there's Noah, Sane, and there's a third character I forget that we got the voice actor for, and then just like a really good trailer for a game that's coming out next year. We don't have a release window other than just next year, but it just looks, even for someone that doesn't have that Suikoden nostalgia, this just looks like really promising. So I'm excited for this, even as an outsider.
Yeah. They still don't have a firm release date, which is fine. Take all the time that you need to like just make this a pretty just amazing game.
Mm-hmm.
And weirdly enough, now you have competition with like the series that like you're a spiritual successor of now. It's just a weird thing to think about, right?
Yeah.
Murayama actually tweeted, I don't know what the Japanese phrase translates to, "You did it." And like happy that
I think they're just it's I think they're just like very like joyful. Of course they want to like see the series that like they created like do well, be successful, be relevant again. Of course they're going to be happy. Bless their hearts. And it's also really funny to think about the logistics of this because obviously since Koano is involved with the Suikoden 1 HD remaster, like obviously she had to keep that secret from like the Eiyuden Chronicle team that she's also working with. That's supposed to be like an answer to like no Suikoden games.
I didn't even realize that.
Yeah, she's the artist on Suikoden 1.
She's the double agent. Oh my god!
Art, and she's also the character designer for Eiyuden Chronicles. So.
Yeah, it's so sick. Kawano is slayed everybody.
Yeah, I think
both sides. So they always come out on top.
That's right.
Mm-hmm. So those are, I guess, Suikoden fans are going to be eating well in next year with both of these titles. All right, we have at least 2 other things that came out of TGS for upcoming RPGs. One of which, a game that we haven't talked about in a while, is the turn-based RPG One Piece Odyssey. So we knew that ILCA, ILCA, and publisher Bandai Namco were working on this. It was obviously a surprise that they were making a turn-based RPG rather than an action game. We got a new release date for One Piece Odyssey. It'll be another January release. So again, as always, Q1 is looking pretty packed. One Piece Odyssey will release on January 13th in the West, January 12th in Japan for Xbox Series, PlayStation, and PC. And we got a new trailer for the release date, which shows a lot of cinematics and I think a little bit of gameplay. I'm not sure. But yeah, for fans of that series, we've got a new RPG early next year for them.
Yeah, there's not really much else to say because like the release date is the big thing out of it. I'm not a One Piece person, but like there's a certain One Piece character, Vivi, is shown at the like tease at the end of the trailer, and like I'm not a One Piece person, so I don't know how much this resonates with One Piece fans. I'm just like, yeah, I guess. Sure, thumbs up.
Yeah,
like,
and for those
like the village idiot.
Yeah, and for those that haven't been keeping up, this is an original story, so no way they're trying to tackle such a long running manga and having their own.
The reason why people like Vivi, you have the Straw Hat crew, like the main characters who kind of like stick together and are there the whole time. Vivi was like an honorary Straw Hat for like an early long arc, like the first big arc in the show.
Okay.
But then she had to leave, like for story reasons. So it's like one of the only times where a Straw Hat had to leave the group, and it's obviously very tearful and whatnot.
Oh.
So basically, people will take any moment to like see her again, sort of thing. Because all the other characters are like still there, but she's like, you know, she had to go somewhere else. So that's why.
Okay. All right. So yeah, and for people like, you know, who are stupid like me when it comes to like not knowing One Piece, like the game's plot is basically just like, hey, they go to this mysterious island. There's this new game original character that distrusts them, and like she has the power to like do the Metroidvania thing where she like takes away all their powers. So much of the game is exploring this island and like regaining their powers. That's my understanding of it.
It seems a little bit like gamey, but I'm okay with it.
Stuck in the video game plot dimension.
Mm-hmm. Here's another demo that I know a lot of people in our Discord, both the public and in the staff, have been enjoying, is the upcoming Wolong Fallen Dynasty, also from Team Ninja and Koei Tecmo. Got a demo in this last week. So it is a limited time demo, so it only lasts until September 26th. But I know a lot of people have been enjoying this and sharing like no damage runs on the demo content and things like that. And I know that Josh has at least have played this. So no release date yet for this. I forget if we got a lot of other footage for this out of TGS or if the demo was the main thing.
The main thing was the demo. They showed like a Lubu boss fight in the TGS stream for it as well. There's like a Neo deal. So after you complete the demo, this is only available on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X and S. By the way, the demo it's not. The full game is going to be available on PC and last gen consoles as well. But as for the demo, it's only for PS5 and Xbox Series. And then after you complete the demo, it does the Neo thing of like, hey, do you want to fill out a survey? And then you have the chance to like submit feedback on the game. So and the Neo developers will take that feedback into account when like making final adjustments on the game. They have a pretty good track record.
Hey Josh, do you remember when Neo 1 almost had weapon durability?
Oh my god, dude. The fucking first demo of Neo 1 was wild. Yeah, I remember that.
Yep. But I think only the two of us have played the demo so far. So
what do you think? I mean, for me, I had a blast with the demo. I really liked it a lot.
I had a lot of fun. My I have two minor complaints. One, if bosses and enemies are going to be as quick as they are at the very end, like the second phase of the demo's boss, healing should probably take a little less time to go through.
For sure.
I feel like you stand still a little bit too long because there's not really a good opening in that. It's like bosses attacks to be able to do.
My healing phase was on that boss was like at the very beginning when it does its 2 swipe. Like I just fucking ran back and took a heal if I took too much damage on the first phase.
Yeah,
like you basically have to like bait like certain attack patterns. But to kind of explain like Wolong is pretty different from Neo in fundamental ways. Like
stances are gone. Like that's the major thing. Like
stances are gone. There's no stamina system in it. There's no like key.
Yes and no.
Yes and no. But like on its face, like you could keep on attacking without like a stamina gauge draining down. But
I think it's fucked up because like you and Chow will get what I'm kind of going to compare the replacement for stamina in Wolong to, because it's not a stamina system. But it's like, what's the name of the system from Under Night?
Oh, the grid, was it GRD system?
Yeah, GRD system. It's basically just that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. So basically, in Wolong, it's interesting because like your main UI is like in the center, like right beneath your character. So like your life bar and like this other like all the relevant meters is no longer the top left corner. It's like right by your character. So like you're focused in on the action without your eyes dwindling to the corner of the screen. Underneath your life bar, there's like this gauge that's normally empty. It's called the soul gauge. And how the system works is it can go both ways. It can go to the negative and it can go to positive. If you go negative, you go red. You go positive, you go to blue. There are certain actions that you take that will both fill this gauge up and will deplete this gauge. Actions like dodging and guarding. No, not guarding. Dodging for sure will deplete this soul gauge. when you're, I don't think it depletes when you're attacking.
It does not. Well, it depends on the attack, because if you're using a regular attack combo, I believe if you whiff your attacks, it might do like a little bit of damage to your soul gauge. But if it connects, you'll gain soul.
Yeah, and there's also you have like your two attacks, your standard attack from the square, and then on the triangle button you have your spirit attack, and that takes away a chunk of your soul gauge as well. When like James said, when you successfully hit like consecutive attacks on enemies, you fill that soul gauge up. Now, when you let that soul gauge go all the way down, that doesn't mean you're quote unquote out of stamina. But when on your next hit, you'll be taken to like a vulnerable state where like you're stunned for a bit, and then you can take a lot of damage from attacks. So if you let that soul gauge go to like negative 1,000, on the upside,
the good news is that once you get stunned, it'll reset. So
yeah.
And
then when you get more soul gauge, that just basically like allows you to have like a bigger buffer zone of like being able to like be more mobile without consuming as much soul gauge, because you have a lot more to work with. So that basically opens up your mobility options. So it's like a tug of war, but balancing defense and offense. You cannot commit to one too much, or else you'll be punished in this game. It's pretty aggressive in terms of like how you balance your offense and defense because of this soul gauge. One of the obviously you have your guard button. You now also have a dedicated jump button. But one of the main things in this game that it emphasizes is a deflect, which is like a parry. So instead of like you can like dodge with like a double tap to circle, but if you tap it once, you'll do like a quick parry like animation. And any attack that most attacks that hit it, you like kind of like deflect it, and then you regain a little bit of soul gauge. So like optimal play in this game is like, hey, be on the offensive and then deflect attacks, to make sure that like you have an ample amount of soul gauge to do your actions without be put in a vulnerable state.
And then like Sekiro and I guess Nioh 2, there's some attacks where you'll see like a flash of red and like a red like core in the enemy kind of flash that denotes that if you deflect that attack, you'll leave them in a vulnerable state. They'll take a lot of soul damage, and gives you an opening to really kind of go ham on them for a second.
The deflect window for those is pretty tight too. You have to be pretty precise with those, and those like special attacks you cannot guard them as well. So like much like Sekiro. So that is how like it primarily is a different flow to Nioh because of that. You also have each of your weapons have different like martial arts skills to them. So there's like different weapon types like swords, sabers, glaives, which are like the spears and polearms, dual swords. In this game, there's like not as much itemization as Nioh is. Like there's like there's when things drop equipment, it's not nearly as much as Nioh. And when you pick up stuff that are like is similar, it can have like it has like the same base stats, but like may have different martial arts skills. So let's say I have this polearm and I have another polearm. If they're the same rarity, which like let's say like they're both 1-star polearms, they'll have the same stats like for attack, but they may have like different martial arts skills attached to them that may give them like different like moves to vary up like their move set. If I get like another polearm that's like a different like higher rarity, then that notes that like there'll be better stats on them as well. So it's not so the stat variety isn't like it doesn't deviate as much as like Nioh does, but it's different when it comes to like their skills on them.
Well, Nioh is almost like overly min-maxy, where you have like, depending on the tier of the weapon, you have 4 like sub skills, and there's like so many mechanics. I even forget what they are to like temper them away and try to get the perfect alignment of sub skills on your weapons. Where a divine tier helmet or whatever can have like so many different permutations of sub skills and things like that, which is kind of fun in the process. But I remember spending hours and hours at the blacksmith just like trying to get that like min-max to a good state.
So here's a question for you, Josh. Did you kill the giant bird?
Yes.
Did you get the sword that you get from killing it?
I don't know if I got a sword, but I definitely picked up like a really great like pole arm, like at the from the yellow drop zone around it. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
like I got a like sword that was like a 4-star and it had like some unique skills uh attached to it, and I used that for the rest of the demo, which makes sense. It's not much left after that. So
Yeah, I rented spears. I really like spear. I did some experimentation with the scimitar and the dual swords, but I kept coming back to spear. I really like that a lot. Um, so like in this game, it also has like a similar like map structure to Neo. So there are several checkpoints that are like shrines, called like the war flag like checkpoints. Like you like implant a flag on these things, and some of them serve as like your shrines in the game where you can
yeah,
like level up your stats, switch out like like your spirit elemental that guides you. You can summon them or like infuse them into you for stat buffs when that meter fills up. And there's like I didn't really engage with this much. I understand like the fundamentals behind it, but I didn't really care about it too much. There's like a morale rank system in the game.
yeah. That's what I wanted to talk about. Like
Yeah.
I like when they were detailing it, I was kind of concerned because it's like, oh, that sounds like Soul Tendency and Demon Souls. I don't know why that would come back in an entirely different studios game, but in context it works out a lot better because the way it works is that the more flags you've placed down, and there's areas where you can place down flags even not for checkpoints but like
Yeah.
off the beaten path, where that raises the minimum morale rank for that level, which means that even if you die, you'll you'll start at a certain morale and you can work your way back up. And from the looks of it, like every level probably has enough of those to guarantee that you're at least on par with the boss. So
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
there's kind of like a level up stat system like that's working passively behind the scenes. So like every enemy has like a certain like morale slash level, and then so you can like kind of quote unquote level up your character as you progress through the stage. So it's sort of like rewarding you for like, hey, if you explore more of this level, and like put these flags down, you'll have like a somewhat easier time if you keep on like dying throughout the level. So at least you like your minimum morale rank is at a certain level, so like you don't feel too underpowered to face what's waiting for you in the level. So like it's one of those systems I was kind of like whatever at, like I just did it, but I never really like thought about like it too much. So I wonder if they're gonna tweak anything with that or just keep it the same. I think the right now I wonder what they're gonna do about like the boss design, because the boss has two phases in it. First like a normal human phase, and the second phase is it's like a more demonic form. The
the first
human,
phase is a bit of a joke.
yeah, it's a bit of a joke because you hit stun it, the boss, and like it's kind of weird sometimes. Sometimes you just like hit stun it in a corner to oblivion, and then like it's whatever. Sometimes it'll be kind of bullshit, and like it'll do like an instant counter attack, like the red attacks, like in the middle of your attack string as you're doing the animation and while it's hit stunned. So that's a little bit of like a weird, system. But the second phase is a lot more challenging, but it's to me it's kind of weird that like there's no really like alternate tactics that you can do against it aside from like learning the boss attack patterns, all the moves and deflecting every single one pretty much. And then like just taking your time and like picking your openings and like just being forced to like, hey, you have to deflect pretty much every attack for this boss, because you cannot be you cannot dodge too much in it because you really need your soul gauge to be
Well,
stable throughout that fight.
a lot of his attacks are sweeps, which you can just double jump over.
Yeah, yeah. But for me, like my tactic for it was like kind of staying like mid to far distance and like kind of baiting the charge move to deflect it, and baiting the red arm move to stagger it to like to break its soul gauge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the red arm move is funny because, like, as soon as you see the flash, you can press the button. You're basically good to deflect it,
yeah,
which is notable because a lot of times the deflect window is very, very tight, and that's like one thing I think they might end up adjusting a bit, like just maybe giving it like a few more frames. But
it was very rewarding, like learning that system through that fight and like the bird mini boss. Like I really enjoyed learning the bird mini boss because I found like when you learn that like you can deflect like the red projectile laser beam it fires at you, and like you can once you like it's like I'll try deflecting this, and then like your character like fires it back at it, and it's like that's fucking metal. That's sick as fuck.
Yeah, some of the unique animations for like deflecting those attacks is really, really cool. And especially like the finisher stuff. Like I posted like a clip on my Twitter about like doing the execution for the buffed tiger enemy about like a third, maybe a halfway through the demo level, and it was like really satisfying.
Yeah, Adam and Brian should really give this demo a shot before it goes away.
Yeah, I mean,
I think
basically everything you're saying, you've been talking about this for a while, but like a lot of times I've just kind of been like, yeah, I really love Neo 2. This is obviously that studio's next project, but it's not on PC, the demo. So, but I have a PS5, so like nothing's really stopping me. I just got to get my head out of my butt and just go do it. And basically everything I've seen of this demo has been really promising. So I really don't have an excuse.
I will say one thing is that first off, I don't know what sort of anti-aliasing they're using for the console demo. I'm not sure. Maybe they're using FSR because that's FSR 2.0 is a thing. It's like DLSS is supported in the engine for the Neo engine, and like a lot of people have said, if you have everything you need to support that, you can support FSR. So who knows? Like if but it's like people have done pixel counting, and they said it's like around 1440p on both systems. And it's like it definitely on console looks fairly crisp, maybe a little bit over sharpened, but it's definitely like in the state it's in right now, it's already pretty promising.
Yeah, it's a looker, and it looks it's different enough from Neo that it feels fresh in a good way.
That's the thing I was gonna say is I don't necessarily think the combat is deeper than Neo, because like the whole thing with the stances and being able to switch between those and whatnot, and like the key pulses, like if I do think there's probably gonna be some people that come into this game and it's like, oh, like the majority of the combat is spamming just a basic like attack combo, doing spells and deflecting. It's like so like Sekiro, but if people can't come into it expecting it to be more like Neo, they might be a little bit disappointed. But that doesn't take away from the fact that I had a blast with it, and I'm really excited to see what the rest of the game has to offer.
Neo devs do not fucking miss. That's for sure.
And again, this is a limited time demo, so if anyone, including me, is going to play it, we only have only so many days to do it. But yeah, everything I've seen about this has been really promising. I've seen a lot of people sharing stuff on social media for it. So this is shaping up to be one of the probably going to end up being on our most anticipated list for next year, I would have bet. So
absolutely.
All right, everything else on our list, we are finally nearing the end. This is just kind of catch-up stuff. I don't remember exactly when all these headlines filtered out throughout the TGS week, so we'll just kind of pull them all here at the end. One of them is that there is a new update to Genshin Impact. We have Genshin Impact 3.1 that I guess the only way that we're going to make any heads or tails of this is to talk to Chow about it and see like we talked a bit about the 3.0 update with the new world and the new map and the new element, like the grass element. I forget what it was called, but I don't know. The what?
It's Dendro.
Yeah, Dendro. That's it. So basically, we had a chance on the podcast previously for you to talk about that, but specifically 3.1, which is coming out at the end of the month on September 28th. There's 3 new characters listed. I don't know much about them, but is there anything specific on this that you're excited about based on what you've played through 3.0?
3.0 is actually a very good patch. I actually enjoyed this patch more than... there was a game that came out around similar at the same time, and I actually very enjoyed this
Power
patch.
of Fantasy? I don't know.
Well, okay, Josh, I'll give you PTSD from this patch. It has a storyline from a famous anime that's similar to Endless Eights.
Dude, why would you... And you're saying this is good?
Yeah, it actually is very good. They somehow able to make this work somehow. It has an Endless Eight story.
Oh boy.
And then there is a different story in there. But anyways, basically the characters are trapped in this time loop. But instead in this, instead of Endless 8, they fast forward through the fillers. Endless 8
Lame.
made you go through the.
That's that destroyed the soul of it. Never mind. Yeah, you said this was better.
Well, so it's like that, but the problem is like they figure out it's not really a time loop. It's they're trapped in a dream, and there's a certain person's body that cannot handle the stress because she's chronologically ill, so they need to get out of this time loop immediately. No, that's kind of like the idea of it. So, anyways, in one of the plot lines in there is a cult that is trying to resurrect the Scarlet King. I believe that might be the Fire Archon at one point, and I guess this trailer's kind of hinting more to that plot arc because the Sumeru doesn't go for the entire storyline. It only gives you like tidbits, so now we're stuck in the waiting game for more content, right?
Your favorite.
But this new patch specifically adds like the desert region, and like it's very Egyptian themed, or at least it appears like that.
So we got Sino, which is the new electric 5-star character. We have a friend named Sino in the server that we go to, and he's like, "You're not rolling for me? What are you?" It's like, you guys are pathetic.
Only if you're meta.
And well, anyways, the biggest announcement is not really about the Genshin. Really, it's really about their whole collaboration with UFO Table. Is that how you pronounce them?
I pronounce it as UFO Table, but I guess people see UFO Table as well. That's they're most notable for the ones who animated the recent Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works TV show, the Heaven's Field movies. They're also the studio behind the Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba TV anime series as well.
The opening of Tales of Arise.
But yeah, they did a lot of projects, and they announced basically kind of like a concept, a trailer. It's not like an anime, but it's just a concept right now, so we don't know.
It's a weird big verdict because they call it as like a quote unquote like long term like collaboration project, like series collaboration project. And like you said, it's like a concept trailer for it. They're being intentionally vague about like what the nature of this like partnership is between Hoyoverse and Ufotable. But
don't expect too much. Everyone's already like overhyped.
Like if people are saying it's gonna be an anime series adaptation, It's like I don't know. They're being vague on purpose, but like that's pretty exciting for fans of Genshin Impact for sure. Like this is like one of the most like highly respected, revered animation studios in the past several years in the anime industry, and like that's pretty exciting. I must imagine for them, that they put out a lot of great work.
Like it could be just simply like an anime opening for the game, it could be something that small, and then the fans like, oh, it's like you guys suck. I was expecting a full series.
Yeah. People already have like their expectations sky high to the moon.
Just keep your expectation in check. I think that's the most exciting announcement. I'm not sure if you stayed up yesterday to watch the Hoyoverse segment in Tokyo.
No, once they were like, we're gonna play through Genshin, and like, okay, I'm not gonna watch.
And Josh is like, I'm out.
It's mostly like a voice actor. It's mostly the voice actor of Zhongli trying to convince all the other actors to play it because he's like a very hardcore Genshin player, right?
Nice.
So that's that segment, and they're mostly just promoting like merchandises from different shops. Obviously, we're not counting the Chinese merchandises because they have a Ganyu credit card, and we have a car.
Are you going to get the Ganyu credit card?
If I had a way. But I also don't want the government after my money.
I don't know how. Like, I wonder how people would feel like if like you started paying like for like, hey, I'm gonna get lunch. Let me go pay my Ganyu credit card.
I hope you get Primo Gems stacked with that.
Oh my god, if you get fucking Primo Gem rewards from the crack. Oh no. This is too dark. Fuck. I hate it. Ugh. That's disgusting. I didn't think about that.
But yeah, there's a lot of collab over the thing. They have a Lawson collab in that trailer or whatever, and they were just selling like a bunch of plushies and a bunch of perfume. I think they were talking about it. Does this perfume smell like that bookstore? Because it's based on a bookstore collab, right? And they're like, yeah, it smells like a bookstore. I don't know. They have that, and then they were promoting the other games from Hoyoverse. What is it? They have Honkai Star Rail and
Zenless Zone Zero.
Zone Zero. Yeah, they
Yeah.
released new trailers for them, but no release dates or anything from them. I haven't gotten a chance to like catch up on that news. Maybe
and there
I will
was
in a
one
bit.
more. There was that Otome game. I don't know what the Otome game was because I was like, whatever. I just zoned out during that part.
I just watched the Harvestella Valkyrie Elysium thing, and then I fucking fell asleep. I was like, I need to go catch up on sleep. So I don't think they announced anything also for the Dio Field Chronicle TGS stream as well, as far as I know. So I mean that's already out next week, so people will get their hands on it.
But is Tokyo Game Show basically done, or is there one more showing?
There is several things still coming tonight. You have the Dragon Quest Adventure of Dai game project stream. You have, for me, for a non-RPG thing, Gungrave Gore Stage, because I want to see more of that new Gungrave game. You also have a TGS broadcast for Tactics Ogre Reborn coming tonight. And then, yeah, that's pretty much like the significant parts.
Oh, I guess that's it for that.
Yeah, I mean, the Tokyo Game Show is going to be a wrap after tonight. Just, really, really strong back to in-person event this year. This is one of the best TGSs as far as game announcements and news goes. They've done in a very long time. Very good.
I'm very happy that in-person stuff is starting to happen again. I've been like we don't even really have time to talk about it, but I did also do like a 505 games like preview event this week and played a couple of games like Miasma Chronicles, and I'm very explicitly like holding off from getting that preview up until after TGS kind of settles down. I feel like that's probably the best for everyone involved. Yeah, it's been very nice to like see that like happen again. It's just been
actually see people in person.
Yeah.
Oh god, yeah. It was kind of funny in a cool way too. Like even at the Square Enix event, it was like it wasn't without its own like little issues, but it's like it was one of those things where you could clearly tell everyone involved, both PR and press, were kind of readjusting to it. So even when there was like these minor mistakes, nobody was judging, because it's like at the end of the day, everyone was just happy to do something like that again, and it's like again people readjusting.
Yeah, that's good. There's a few more small tidbits here. I guess I'll lead it off.
Yeah, go ahead on this one.
Yeah, a Gundam game lineup TGS 2022 stream. It's just like revealing the rest of the DLC content coming to SD Gundam Battle Alliance. People have been really liking that game. Like that has found a community ever since its release. So that's really cool to see. They released the first pack a few weeks back, like a week or so ago, for that game, which had the Gundam Age FX and Gundam Narrative units and their missions. For the next DLC pack coming on September 29th, they'll have the missions, and then they'll be adding Knight Superior Dragon and Moon Gundam, which is a pretty deep cut. This is like from a 2017 manga that was only released in Japan. So that's cool to see coming on September 29th. Their final DLC, planned DLC for the title is releasing later in 2022. No release date. That's adding units from the Gundam Hathaway movies with the Kasi Gundam and Penelope coming, and then a personal favorite of mine out of nowhere. There's a pretty deep cut as well. They're adding the Gundam Exia Repair 4 from a Gundam 00 stage play that was a sequel to the movie. So this Gundam Exia Repair 4 is piloted by not Setsuna, it's piloted by Graham Aker. And once again, this unit and this storyline only ever happened through a stage drama play in Japan that served as the sequel to Gundam 00 Awakening of the Trailblazer movie.
Didn't Setsuna become like an alien or something in the movie?
Yes.
I don't even remember. Okay.
Yeah, he comes back all silver and chrome and ageless.
So this is a pretty wacky, like, that's cool to see. That's these are awesome deep cuts with the Moon Gundam and the Gundam Exia Repair 4. So I'm looking forward to like checking that out. The SD Gundam Battle Alliance, pretty fun game, playing with friends and everything. So that's been cool.
Turns out it's a better game when you're not forced to play it solo with AI.
Yeah, it's interesting because like they're gonna make minor future adjustments to that game. Like one of the things is like, oh, we think the mobile armor boss battles, like they have like we need to adjust like the challenge level of those. So like they're kind of going back and addressing some of the problems I had with that game going through it solo, along with adjusting how much money, in-game money people get in the game. It's kind of too low right now, so it'll continue getting support throughout the rest of the year. They're also for the Xbox stream, they announced kind of out of nowhere that they're bringing Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch remastered to Xbox One and Xbox Series X, and they're also bringing the Ni no Kuni 2 eventually as well, I believe.
It's not an RPG, but hell yeah, Arxis is back on Xbox. Guilty Gear Strive coming, and cross tag battle, not Central Fiction, unfortunately.
Yeah,
but yeah.
That the Guilty Gear Strive is really interesting coming to Xbox because Arxis has been working on crossplay between on PC and PlayStation, and now I wonder if they also have Xbox in mind for the crossplay plan they have.
You gotta assume they will, because they said that when they were working through the crossplay, they kind of had to get their own servers for it. Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, then it would just make sense that they want to get as much mileage out of that purchase as they could.
I'd love it. I'd love to see it. Yeah. Good on fighting games in general this week for just having crossplay out the gate. Street Fighter 6 brought the heat. We're not gonna get into
Street Fighter 6. All the details about Street Fighter 6 and Tekken and whatnot. We're in a golden age of fighting games. It feels so fucking good.
It feels so really good. Street Fighter 6 might be an RPG in some aspects as well. With
collecting abilities.
You have stats on there. You have damage numbers. I'm just saying.
Back to the Xbox TGS thing. Shout outs to Fuga Melodies of Steel for getting a Game Pass release.
Yes.
And, I tweeted out a joke about, hey, now that it's on Game Pass, I guess the game's profitable. And the game's director liked that tweet. So
hey, good on them. Good on them. The more people that play Fuga Melodies of Steel, the better. I hope that finds new fans through the Game Pass.
Phil Spencer is directly funding Fuga Melodies of Steel 3 is a statement that you can say that you cannot prove is wrong.
That's true. That's true. Good on Phil for going out and reaching out to the Japanese developers and getting more of them on Game Pass. So yeah, Ni no Kuni Wrath of the Witch remastered on Xbox and Xbox Series X. It's instantly available as well on Xbox Game Pass. So once again, Game Pass getting a W. And then they're also bringing Ni no Kuni 2 Revenant Kingdom later in 2023 for Xbox One, Xbox Series X, and I assume Xbox Game Pass as well, following Wrath of the White Witch remastered.
And supposedly they're still working on Xbox, or they haven't given up hope on Xbox Final Fantasy 14.
Final Fantasy 14, yeah. I don't see it on the news document. Did we already talk about how Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is getting an next-gen version?
Oh, maybe you haven't yet because Adam barely put that up. But yeah, if you want to talk about it, go for it.
Yeah, I think I mentioned last week. I don't remember if it's something we recorded on the podcast or not. Hey, I could see Kakarot getting more DLC because Xenoverse still gets DLC, and it did.
Yeah, so we got another season pass and next gen updates, and I think the thing that really stands out to me is that the next gen versions are only $20 each.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay.
And they're getting physical releases, so it's wow. Jesus, that's really cool. And
that's a good deal.
See the comparison screenshots. Will they be 60 FPS this time? Because I know that
are they offering upgrades?
Yes, it's a free upgrade.
Cool.
So technically, while you could get a next gen version of Kakarot, you could just probably find a last gen version for $10 and just wait for the update.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, it's $20, and I know a lot of people that would just like to have the actual next gen version on their shelves. So I can't blame that. Hopefully it's 60 FPS. I know the Xbox One X version was 4K 30, so hopefully next gen gets 60 as an option. That would be.
I hope so. I think we're finally at the last news story out of this jam-packed week, and this is a pretty big one.
I like how you're taking over on announcing these because I'm sitting here kind of we've made it.
I know.
And this I don't know if this is worthy of the last news story, but maybe it is.
I think it is for the Mega Man fans. The developers of the Mega Man Battle Network Legacy Collection, which has pretty much every Mega Man Battle Network game on it, they've announced that they're working on implementing online battles and chip trading for those games. And for that community, that's a tremendous, gigantic W for them, because the Battle Network online community, they've been kind of working at that scene through emulation means. throughout the past few years, and that community has like been slowly growing, and like they've been really getting into it. But now it's gonna be officially supported with this Legacy collection.
No crossplay though.
No crossplay, yeah, no crossplay, and also with chip trading. Chip trading only is supported through like their own like family of platforms through PlayStation and Xbox, like their own separate communities, and Switch as well. So, but
I will
at the very
say
least, this is good.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really interesting is these aren't remasters; these are full remakes.
Oh, are they?
Yeah, they said as much as that they had to remake them, so it's interesting. And like you can see like the title screens that they've shown, it's like fully remade, and it's like a lot of work's obviously being put into them. Let us turn off the fucking. Well, no, they said we can turn off the filter. Okay, I was thinking this has happened so many times. I just like I forget. I
Turn off
forget when a
pixel
game
filter.
lets you turn
have a
on or
smooth
off.
filter.
Sorry, Capcom, you're doing great. Can't wait for it.
Yeah.
It's been a long podcast.
Yeah, so yeah, like we just mentioned, like they do offer the option to toggle on or off the quote unquote high quality filter, which smoothens the pixels. Which is
give me the low quality.
Give me the low quality.
More like a low quality filter.
Yeah, and like we were mentioning earlier, this has Ed Kite put up on his news post that this has a brand new menu. You have like kind of like a 3D Mega Man EXE model talking to you with the original voice actor. Like you can interact with it in the main menu. They also have like a button for silent mode, so you can like shut up Mega Man as well in the main menu. But yeah, once again, they're implementing it. I don't think it's gonna be there at launch, but hey, it's gonna be there eventually. For these Battle Network games. So that's awesome. That's cool. And yeah, that's Nintendo Direct. This pre-Nintendo Direct, then Nintendo Direct, then State of Play, then RGG Summit, then Tokyo Game Show, all into 1 week. With all the previews that came out as well, features that came out.
Lots of demos, opportunities for James to play some games early. You were able to play some Valkyrie demo early, just some standard demo experiences with Wolong, things like that. And when we first started recording, I thought we probably won't hit 4 hours, but we got pretty darn close, and we didn't even hit all the headlines. I'm sure there's lots of things we missed. Like there's a second title update for Sunbreak, but not really worth the space here because we just knew we had so much else to talk about.
We should have talked about Flaming Espinus, and we should have talked about Ascended.
No, too late.
Was it Ascended?
Risen Cabelius. I mean that like
too late. We talked about it next
site.
week.
Yeah, it's up on the site. They're adding layered weapons finally to Sunbreak, and all that good stuff. You can find info for that on the site. It's just been a lot. Some of us need our sleep as well. Can't wait to have a normal sleeping schedule again. And yeah, I mean, we got through it. We survived.
Everything that we've talked about is up on the site. It's a lot of features. It's an interview. It's previews. It's all up there. So go ahead and give anything that you felt was interesting to you a look up on the site, including all the stuff from, we didn't even talk at the end here, all the PAX West stuff from 4 hours ago that Scott put up. So buried in underneath everything else, that's all up there.
If you're listening and you made it this far, like let us know what you like, what you saw at this throughout this week and what you liked. There's a lot of new games coming out. It's been really, really fantastic seeing what Tokyo Game Show and the Nintendo Direct and State of Play brought. But we want to hear from you. What is catching your interest? There's been a lot. We want to know what you're looking forward to.
I forgot that we got Forspoken gameplay and other stuff too. There's even more on the site that we didn't have time for here because we're sitting here at the 4 hour mark.
Shocking! Apparently, Forspoken's confirmed for Steam Deck too.
Oh wow!
Oh nice.
And then the best thing out of this is we have so much playable demos coming out of this as well. It's cool to see these games from a distance, but it's even better to get hands on these future releases coming out. Now,
I still need to play the Harvestella demo. I'm really excited for that game. The more I see of it and trailers and whatnot.
Yeah.
So go ahead and visit rpgsite.net and read through some of the previews and interviews and news stories that we've been putting up over the week. You can also
previews. I played that all on Wednesday, and the embargo was Thursday morning at 5 a.m. I did not sleep that night. I did not sleep that night.
You muscled through it. Big props to you, dude. Yeah, definitely. We worked our asses off to bring you the best coverage.
I still have more stuff this month.
So join our Discord channel at discord.gg/RPG site. We also are on all the social media platforms. Search for RPG site on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. You'll find us there. If you listen to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts, leave us a review. Let us know what we're doing well. Let us know what we're not doing well. Obviously, we also put this podcast on YouTube, so you can comment there as well. Well, like I said at the very start, 4 hours ago, we will try to make the timestamps as useful as possible and try to at least bundle them together for like direct and state of play and all the other stuff, RGG Studios. And I have no idea what we'll be tidying up next week. My brain is too fried or frizzled to think about it, but next week hopefully a shorter podcast that will tie up any loose ends that come out at the very end of Tokyo Game Show. And obviously, we're just going into a very hectic release schedule. We have at the end of September, we've got Dio Field, Valkyrie, Legend of Heroes, Trails from Zero. We didn't mention once, but that's only a few weeks out. And then October is packed, November is packed, December is also getting pretty packed. So it'll be pretty busy from this point forward. I guess thank you to everyone on the podcast, Josh, James, Adam, and Chow, for sticking it out for 4 hours. I know it's probably, mortgaging some part of we record this in the middle of the day on Saturdays. So thank you for all sticking it out and putting it together for our listeners.
I need more coffee.
Me too.
Yeah. I don't know. Thank you so much if you made it this far, listening to this. We really appreciate it. Yeah, there's nothing much more else to say. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your feedback, wherever you give it, whether it's on the site, whether it's on social media, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's, through our various podcast feeds, it helps us, we really think about what makes sense, what do people care about? How do we serve it in a reasonable fashion and easy to understand? We don't want to overload you people. We want to give you the important details that you care about first and foremost. Yeah, it's
well stated. Yeah, so you will hear from us next week. We don't know what the coverage will be. We'll think about that halfway through this week. I'm going to flush my brain first.
There'll be 505 game stuff. I can say that much.
Yeah.
All right, so look forward to that. Until you hear from us next week, stay safe, take care. Let us know what you're excited for, and we'll talk to you next time.
Later, everyone.
Video games are good.